We've been acting out for days, nothing to deny. Blown up because echoes through the halls. You keep sleeping on the couch just to prove the point. I'm too proud to tell you when I'm wrong. Arguments spinning in circles, we're fighting for days, stuck in a phase. I think we're losing the reason. One word is all it takes, babe. Bursting out in cold flames. Breathing, we are catching fire. Thought that we were wiser. Go and light the match, babe. Miss out on the good days. Breathing, we are catching fire. Fire, fire. Fire, fire. Fire, fire. Fire, fire. Silent treatment ain't no cure, just making it harder. Keep on acting busy on your phone. I just wanna feel your touch, baby, can we stop this? Don't you wanna hold me anymore? Arguments spinning in circles, we're fighting for days, stuck in a phase. I think we're losing the reason. One word is all it takes, babe. Bursting out in cold flames. Breathing, we are catching fire. Thought that we were wiser. Go and light the match, babe. Miss out on the good days. Breathing, we are catching fire.
Hello. Well, I figured out how to play music, how to play bumper music on my stream, but I did not figure out how to fade seamlessly to my other scene. So what can you do? Nice to see you all here. I am Joshua Bardwell, and you, let me hear it in the chat. What are you going to do today? You're going to learn something today. Hi, it's nice to see you. I'm doing a Q&A live stream today, and that means that it is my job to answer your questions, and it's your job to ask the questions. That's what I love to do. And, you know, I sit in my house and I make videos, and I try to make videos that answer your questions, I guess, as to what your questions might be. Sometimes I hit and sometimes I miss, but these live streams, there's nothing better than being able to just get your questions and try to do my best to answer them. And we're going to go for a couple hours today. Before we get started, as you guys are all trickle in as the good doctor says, as you guys are all trickling in, I want to throw out a couple things before we get started. One is, this is going to be up on my channel on DVR later. Means people will be able to, there's a recording, it's going to go up, and it's going to be several hours, and not everybody likes to watch the whole thing. So people say, Joshua, why don't you make a table of contents that you can put in the video description with the timestamps? So basically, you know, like at 2 minutes, Joshua talked about this. At 2 minutes to 30 seconds, he talked about this. And I say, oh my God, I can't possibly do that while I'm also live streaming. So if anybody out there right now, one of you guys in the chat, if anybody out there is going to be sticking around for the whole live stream, ideally, and if you want to start making that table of contents, just while you're listening, every time we add a new question, just real quick, mark the timestamp, write down what it was. I will put that in the video description for everybody else. So if you want to contribute a little bit to the community, you know, that kind of thing. Because I'm not going to go back and watch a whole 3-hour live stream again just to make timestamps for you. It's not going to happen. I'll do the live stream. If anybody out there wants to volunteer to make the timestamps, send them to me afterwards. I will happily put them up. And if not, okay, that's out of the way. Let's see what else we got. Now look what I got here. Hang on a second. Let me show you. Ooh, look what I got here. See, I am monitoring the super chats. Yeah, you can super chat me if you want. Ooh, RDFPV sent me $5 for I have no idea what, but thank you, RDFPV. That might be an old one. I got you guys right here in the lower left. Yes, I do. And I've got, what is this? What is this? This is my Discord server. Yep, I have a Discord server now. It's for my patrons only at this time. Someday it may open up to non-patrons, but for now it's for my patrons only. To become a patron, go to patreon.com, and there's links at the bottom of all my videos. You can sign up at the $1 or $2 a month level, and you get access to that. And I will be watching over on there where my patrons can chat. None of them really seem to be there, so okay. But I'll be watching over there as well, so to get as many questions as I can. And we'll even get some voice chat, because Discord can do voice chat. So I may even like take a live phone call from one of them. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Discord, was because it could do that. Yeah, I see Rick, I see you over there in the green room. I wonder if that means you want to come on the air. Chat at me, Rick. Over on the patron-only chat text channel. Tell me what you're thinking of asking, and we'll see if we can fit it in. Okay. What am I drinking today? You guys are going to want to know. I know you're going to want to know. This is peach mango with a little bit of fizz, a little bit of carbonation from the Soda Stream. My mom got me a Soda Stream for Christmas a little while back. It's like a $70 thing that makes carbonated water at home, so you can make your own sodas. I never would have bought it. My mom bought it for me for Christmas because it's the kind of thing you never would buy. So I have a fizzy. There's no alcohol in here. There's no gin. Total sober. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to address a couple of questions that have already come in. And one of the things that was asked, Shais, one of my patrons, said, I talked about Rotor Riot Rampage a little. First of all, there's a giveaway. You guys need to know there's a giveaway going on if you hold a pilot pass for a Rotor Riot Rampage, basically a ticket. Then you're eligible for these giveaways that we're doing. You don't even have to. If you ever bought a pilot pass, you're eligible. Right now, I am giving away a Carrera Kia. That's the Freestyle one. Yeah, the Carrera Kia quadcopter, like a whole quadcopter, not just the frame, ready to fly. And that's giveaway is happening on Monday. But there were some details that came out about Rampage that some people were wondering about, and I thought I would, since somebody asked, and while people are getting started on the live stream, one of the questions is, like, for a freestyle event like this, how are you handling channels and making sure that everybody gets enough flight time? And we actually put a lot of thought into this, because when you're at a race, you have 4, 5, 6 pilots per heat, and everybody sits down to fly, and they fly, and then they leave, and nobody expects to be flying at a race except when it's their heat. But at a freestyle event, everybody wants to fly as many packs as they can. So what we've done is we've tested out this site. So we had a bunch of people come out to the site, and people would fly at one flight line, they would fly at the other flight line, and they would, we'd see if they were interfering. So now we know you can fly at these 2 flight lines at the same time, or only if you're on these channels. But basically, we figured out the maximum number of pilots we could have in the air at the same time. And we've got 4 or 5 different flight lines at 4 or 5 different great locations. So there you go. Once we knew that, that's how we then limited the number of tickets, and that's why some people have said $170 for a pilot pass is pretty expensive. Why it's only, it's much less than that to go to a lot of other flight events. And the thing is, we had to limit the number of pilots to make sure that the people who did come could get enough flight time. Unlike Flight Fest, where everybody flies line of sight, you can just go to the flight line and get in the air. With an FPV event, you have to make sure that there's only so many pilots. So that's one of the reasons why tickets are what they are. So those are some steps we've taken, and since somebody asked. All right. Well, I see a bunch of questions coming in, so I am going to start answering them. Let's see here. What do we got? Is Betaflight 3.5 better for freestyle or racing? Asks Enrico Porta. If you are out there working on my table of contents, now's the time to start writing it down. This is the first question. Is Betaflight 3.5 better for freestyle or racing? Here's the thing. I am not like a hardcore racer. I race sometimes, and I'm not particularly good at it. The question I would have to ask is, are pilots who are really good racers switching to Betaflight 3.5? And I have to say, I have heard people from Betaflight 3.4, people saying this was the first time that I thought Betaflight gave Raceflight a run for its money, and some racers were switching back to Betaflight after 3.4. But if there are any racers in the chat, tell me what you think of Betaflight 3.5. I can tell you 3.5 is great for freestyle. I like the tunability of it. I like the ability with the new feed-forward parameter to be able to adjust the stick feel separate from the gains. So I think that's really nice in 3.5. And in fact, if you fly Butterflight, I used to say, well, Butterflight flies pretty good, but it feels a little bit soft sometimes. I wish I could raise the set point weight. And actually, I heard, I haven't checked this, but Butterflight actually recently just released 3.6, which implements all the Betaflight 3.5 improvements in Butterflight. So if you fly Butterflight and you're wishing you could get some of the things from 3.5 in your Butter, then now you can. So... will I go to Burning Man with Tweak FPV? I do not have a Burning Man just happened, I think. Everybody just left. Yeah, it's early September, so will not be going, did not go to Burning Man this year, and it's a little too soon to say whether I'd do it next year. I got to tell you, though, if I do any traveling, it's going to be probably to flight events. I intended to go to Flight Fest this year. I had a great time at Flight Fest last year. And then people were like, hey, are you going to Flight Fest? And I was like, yeah, when is it? And they were like, this weekend. And I was like, oh, I guess not. So, okay. What would I tell people living in a big city like Tokyo, where restrictions make it almost impossible to fly within 2 hours away? Man, Alexis, I have no idea what to tell you. I know that there are people who fly in New York City, and New York City is essentially one big no-fly zone. And the pilots I know who live in New York City, a lot of times they'll just like rip a pack in a park and then leave before the cops show up. I'm not condoning that behavior. I'm just telling you that sometimes what will happen. I don't think that would fly in a country like Japan, where people seem to have a lot more respect for the rules. To tell you, I really don't know how people, I mean, I think that's a big reason why you see less participation from some countries than others, because the regulations and so forth simply don't. You know what the answer is? Here's the answer. If you live somewhere like Tokyo, fly a tiny whoop. Fly a 2-inch. You know, that, speaking of which, look at this little guy. Look at this little guy here. This is from Newbie Drone. It is a new little micro from Newbie Drone. I don't even know the name of it. I'm not even sure it's out yet. So I'm terrible. I just got it in the mail. Has 1104 7500 kV motors. Runs on 2-cell. Cute little 3D printed canopy. You can go see some flight video if you go check out Zoro FPV, Zoroe FPV's page. He's been flying his around and posting a lot of videos. So this is the kind of thing that you might be looking at if you live somewhere like Japan and you can't go fly a 5-inch and rip balls and building dive. Smaller quads are usually more socially acceptable. Let's see. Hulskers asks, Josh, can you advise me on connecting my camera and VTX on my Maytech PDB? 5 volt on the camera doesn't seem to be working nice. There's noise. Well, if you try powering a camera off of 5 volt, and there's noisy, maybe the camera would do better on higher voltage. What I find is that some cameras do better on a really nice, clean 5 volt supply. Like if your VTX has a 5 volt output, then you might run your camera off of that. But a lot of cameras nowadays are rated for like 5 to 40 volts or 5 to 36 volts. So they have an internal voltage regulator, and a lot of times giving them a higher voltage like 9 volts, 12 volts, or even VBAT can create the best image, even though you would expect it to be noisier. It's really just trial and error. I always start by powering my camera and my VTX off of VBAT because it's just simpler. You just wire them up to any spare ESC pad and boom, you're done. And then if I don't have sufficiently clean video, then I start moving things around, try powering off of a 12 volt or a 9 volt regulator or other things. But I always start by powering them off of VBAT, and a lot of times it's fine. I'm not super picky about my video. If there's a little bit of noise, I don't care. I'm just too busy flying. But usually that works fine for me. Thank you, Rogue Factor, for $10 in the super chat. Wow, thank you. That's a huge donation. And you didn't even ask a question. So I appreciate it. Thanks for it. MC Creations, thank you for $5. I will grab a beer Thank you. I will. And Plummet FPV, thank you for $2. Let's see here. Can I talk, JROM FPV, can I talk about the Clearview module? So let's talk about Clearview. Let's do that. Hang on. Yeah, Rogue Factor, I might. It's not out of the question that I would do Flight Fest Texas, because right now all my energy is focused on Rampage, and I'm just not even thinking past it. Clearview module. Here is a Clearview module. I received this in the mail 2 days ago, and people are asking, you know, Clearview, why haven't I reviewed Clearview yet? So a little bit of background in case anybody's not up to date. The Clearview ground station is widely hailed to be the best FPV receiver you can get. It's got magic unicorn dust that makes it amazing, and nobody really disputes that. Some people say, well, it's not that much better and it's too expensive, but nobody says it's not better. Nobody that I know of anyway. So then but the problem is it's a ground station. So then Iftron said, hey guys, look, we're going to make a module. We're going to stick it in your goggle. And I have a funny story about this. I said years ago, I said to Iftron, I said, man, if you guys could get this into a module, you would just kill everybody. You'd be great. And they said, can't be done. Too many chips, too much hardware, just can't fit in that form factor. And at Flight Fest last year, I saw the first prototype of this device. He said, you're never going to believe what I've got. Okay. And he sat me down and he showed it to me. And I was like, you have got a real winner here. But then when it came out, it had problems. And what were the problems? There was a manufacturing defect was the actual first problem. The board was just built wrong. They had to send them all back. They had to reorder them. They did a recall. And then now they're supposed to be shipping new ones. And they sort of have been trickling them out to the marketplace. But I haven't reviewed them. And the reason for that is that they are still making incremental improvements. So they sent me one and I said, okay, I'll test it soon. And then they said, well, hang on, we're improving the firmware. Can you wait? And they keep saying, will you wait just a little bit longer? We just made another improvement because, of course, they want a good test result. They want the best results. So I have one now and I am going to test it. And actually, in fact, I have another surprise for you guys I'll announce here. So one of the problems with the receiver test that I've been doing is I use a DVR to record the video output. And I've got what I think is the best DVR you can use, which is the Luminaire DX600. It's about $100, and I bought 6 of them. Do the math. But I wanted to get great results for you guys testing these modules. And the great thing about the DX600 is that it doesn't go out of sync when the video breaks up. The video stays perfectly in sync. And it does a really good job. But the problem is that no DVR records exactly what you see in the screen. Now, my position has always been that although it's not the same, it doesn't change the rankings. So the one that does worst in the goggles will also do worse in the DVR. But the problem is that people look at this DVR footage and they go, this sucks. It's not what I see in the goggles. Something isn't right here. So I actually I bought a second set of HDOs. So I have 2 HDOs and I have 2 GoPros, and I'm actually going to put the freaking GoPro in the goggle and do a live stream, actually. Maybe next weekend if I get this stuff together. I'm going to do a live stream where I'm going to show you guys the actual in-goggle view with the HDMI output of a GoPro stuck in the goggle of, like, I'm going to do the rapid fire, the clear view. I want to do them all, and that's going to be coming hopefully next weekend, maybe in this exact time slot. And so that's the answer to, is the Clearview test coming? Yeah. Let's see here. Looking at the questions. How would you go about troubleshooting a Tyrannis with X-4 Rsb with max 70-meter range before failsafe? So anytime you've got a short range, the first thing I want to do is figure out if it's an issue with the quad or an issue with the transmitter. And the simplest way to do that is to get another quad, bind it, and see if you have short range. Ideally, I mean, if you have a bunch of quads, then you can troubleshoot this easily. If you have a bunch of friends, you can go and just say, hey, can I just bind my transmitter to your quad real quick and just see how far away before you fail safe. But you got to narrow that down. A lot of times what you'll find is that it's actually the transmitter, especially with the Tyrannis, because the Tyrannis, if you ever remove the antenna off a Tyrannis, it is very prone to damaging from static electricity, from electrostatic discharge. It's very prone to damaging the radio board, and it kind of happens over time. It just gets worse and worse. So first, just use a process of elimination to see if it's the issue with your radio or an issue with your receiver. If it's an issue with the receiver, you can check the antennas for physical damage. Maybe an antenna got chopped, or a lot of times the receiver will just be old and dead and damaged, and you replace the receiver. So it's really just a matter of process of elimination, right? It could be if it's the transmitter, you might need a new radio board, which is like $60, and you have to be really good at soldering to swap the radio board. I have a video about how to do that. It's really frustrating. In fact, one of the most frustrating things to me about the Tyrannis is that, number one, the radio board doesn't seem to be better protected from damage. It's too easy to damage it. If your antenna is broken and you have the radio powered on for like 10 seconds, done. So I wish it were better protected. Like if you look at the Crossfire stuff, you can leave a Crossfire module powered on without an antenna for like a half hour, maybe longer. I can't remember the number, and it won't take any damage. Well, how do they do that? I don't know. So I wish Freestyle did something like that. And then when it does break, you have to replace the whole backboard, and you have to solder on the new antenna, and it's a real pain in the butt. So it's pretty frustrating. Let's see. So many questions going by. So many questions going by. If you wanted a long-range Freestyle build with 10+ minute flight times, what motor battery prop combo would you be using? Well, here's the thing. I can fly for 10 minutes on any one of my quads right now. It's going to be a really boring flight. So the thing is, when you talk about flight time, I think you have to really define what you mean by a Freestyle build. A Freestyle build, if you're just ripping balls, you're not going to get 10 minutes of that. That's like saying, I want to do, an 11-second quarter-mile drag race, but I also want to get 50 miles to the gallon. You just can't have both of those things at the same time. So a quad that is built for endurance and flight time is not going to have the performance to be a really good Freestyle quad. And I think when you're talking about 10-minute flight times, that's just defies the physics that we have available to us today in terms of battery technology and so forth. So let's try to answer the question that you might really be asking, which is, if you want to build a kind of an acrobatic copter for sort of longer range cruising, like what would you do? And I think what I would be doing is I'd be looking at, generally when you want endurance, number one, you go for higher voltage. So you'd be moving from 4S up to 6S. And if you look at all the endurance quads, they're all on 6S, 8S, 10S, 12S, but they're not on 4S typically. The exception to that might be something like the DJI Mavic and Phantoms, which if I remember correctly, they run on 3S, which is surprising, but they are just so engineered to a T to get that endurance, and I think most people aren't, they're not going to be able to do that at home. So lower KV motors, larger props, and higher voltage battery. Those are the three, and then lighter weight. You got to get the weight down. So maybe, I've seen some interesting like 3-inch builds that have surprising range because they're just so small and light. So that's what I would be looking at. Personally, I would look at 6 or 7-inch props with something like 6S, 1400 kV, 1500 kV motors maybe. And you could still get some like swooshy agility, but not like snappy flips and rolls, and you get pretty long flight time. So there you go. Hope that was a good answer. Which digital caliper do you recommend? Asks Buichi FPV. Oh, I love that question. Hold on. This is the digital caliper I use. I love it. It is from iGagging. Let me find an Amazon link. It is a great digital caliper. It has millimeters, it has inches, it has fractional inches, it has absolute origin, which means, I don't really know what that means, but it seems good. If I can take 1/2 a minute and find the exact one I bought, I'll put a link in the chat. Let's see. It's like $40, I think. Yes, I think this is the one I bought. Well, let's see. 0 to 6 inch with fractions. Is that the one I bought? Yes, here it is. You purchased this item. There we go. I am going to get you a link, and I'm going to stick it in the video description. Boom. There it is. Link in the video description. So you can check that out if you want to get those. Get that. Is that a Nirvana back there? Asks Random FPV. Why, yes, it is Random. How nice of you to ask. And in fact, I just got done recording a little. Well, it's not even a review, because here's the thing about the Nirvana. The Nirvana, they're still finishing the software, so I can't really review it until the software is done. And part of what they're doing is they're porting OpenTX to the radio, which, okay, fine. But also what they're doing is they're developing a whole new firmware, which is like a simplified version of OpenTX just for multi-rotor pilots, with a lot of the, just to make the setup easier. So they're not only porting OpenTX, but they're also doing whole new software development. But I will say the form factor of the radio, I kind of like it. I could get used to it. And I really am a big fan of what Underground FPV seems to be. They just seem so passionate and responsive that I just want to believe this is going to be a successful product. I want to see them succeed, because it really feels like a lot of the radios we get, nobody's really thinking a lot about what we want. So like if you look at the Tyrannis X10S, the FreeSky X10S, it's a very, very nice radio, but nobody really broke the mold with that radio. They just were like, okay, we're going to make a radio. It's going to have nice gimbals. It's going to have a big screen, but it's still kind of the same radio. I mean, I don't mean to put the X10 down, but with the Nirvana, they just really started from scratch and said, how can we make this the best radio we can? The main thing I don't like about it is that it uses FlySky protocol, which there's nothing wrong with FlySky protocol. It's just all my receivers are FreeSky, and I hate the thought of switching. So, yes, MC Creations, if you get the Nirvana from Banggood, you will not be able to use their new, you'll have to use the regular build of OpenTX, not the custom build of OpenTX from Underground FPV. And I'm not sure I fully understand why that is, but I would, if you should know that if you buy the radio from Banggood, you're not getting the whole package, you're just getting the hardware. And I'm not sure who's maintaining OpenTX, if not Underground FPV, and why they're maintaining two separate builds. But I would suggest buying the radio from Underground FPV or an authorized reseller. But then if Banggood isn't an authorized reseller, how are they even getting product? So I just kind of don't understand, but that is the truth, MC. Alep asks, is the FlySky i6S good, or should I get a QX7? Well, let me just remind myself. i6, which one is the i6S? Yeah, that's just the really basic FlySky radio. So that radio will get you in the air, but a QX7 is way, way better in just about every way compared to the FlySky i6S. So I would say QX7 all the way. And the i6S is $50-ish, and the QX7 is, okay, it's like $120, so it's way more. But if you can swing for the QX7, it's a way, way better radio. I got some more super chats coming in. I am obliged to answer them. Ed Ricker chats $20. Thank you so much, Ed, and says, I've been watching you since November when I flew my first FPV quad, an Eachine Wizard X220. You do a great job explaining things. Your impact is huge. I want to be able to solder like you when I grow. Oh, thank you, Ed. No question. Just a nice compliment. So many people start flying with the Eachine Wizard X220, and here's what I say about the Wizard. It's the best quad you can buy ready to fly for 100 and whatever, $60, $80, whatever it is. But it is objectively not like a good quad. It's got so much wrong with it. But it will get you in the air. So. Batpig FPV says, hey man, new build, random twitches or flickers. Would you say that's bad gyro or bad motors? That's a tough one. If you're getting random twitches like tick, 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 right when you're hovering, that's gyro noise most of the time, not motor noise, not motor issues. A problem with a motor will usually result in a dip of an arm, right? So if you're sitting there and you're hovering and you get a tick on the roll axis or a tick on the pitch axis or a tick on the yaw axis, if you think about it, two motors would have to glitch simultaneously to cause that, and that's probably not going to happen. So usually when there's a problem that is along an axis, that's the gyro, but when there's a problem with a motor, you'll get a diagonal dip or tick, and that tells you which motor it is. Let's see. Okay. QX Shais over on the Discord says QX7 is $104 at race day quads usually, so only about twice as much as the FlySky i6. Can't you use a FreeSky JR module in the Nirvana? Yes, you absolutely can. So I could get a FreeSky XJT module, stick it in the back of the Nirvana, and use all my FreeSky receivers. But number one, I'm not sure about the latency there. Is the latency on an external XJT module the same as the latency on an internal one? Maybe it is. Maybe the digital protocol is still there. But it's still annoying if I have the built-in radio. Why can't I use it? Because hang on. Oh, do you know what I can do? Watch this. I came prepared today, guys. Watch this. Boom. Oh, what the heck? Now, I can't see your chats anymore. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Hang on. I think you can hear me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here come the chats telling me they can hear me. Oh, so here's the deal with this. Like, you can put these little brackets on the back, and then the module just snaps in. And I can't see your chats while I'm at the bench, so forgive me. See, the module just snaps in, and that's fine. That's fine. But if I then wanted to use Crossfire and FreeSky, I'd be swapping this module out all the time. That's kind of annoying. I would rather just use my built-in radio, have Crossfire locked in, boom, and be good to go. So I just don't like the thought of constantly having to swap the module like that. Okay. Here we go. Did that work? Hey, I'm back. Did that work? Did you guys? Yeah. Okay. Al Y asks, individual motor direction, can it be changed in Betaflight or does it have to be done in BL Heli Suite only? Let me show you what I think you're talking about there. Give me 1 second to plug in this guy. This guy is just happened to have it at the desk. This is a massive droner from Catalyst Machine Works. It's a little 3-inch racing quad from Catalyst Machine Works. It's pretty freaking cool. I guess you could do freestyle with it, but it happens to be sitting at my desk, and I'm going to real quick bring up Betaflight Configurator. Hang on. Boom. Oh, man, I feel like such a live streamer right now with my different scenes. Yeah, Broke Pilot, you can ask whatever questions you want, but you don't promise I'll get to them, but I'll do my best. The motors on this one, MC Creations, are 1407, 4200 kV. So what I think you're asking about, AJ, with the reverse motors is if you go to the configuration tab, you'll see this. Oh, and look, in fact, in this case, it actually is reversed. This does not reverse your motors. This tells Betaflight whether your motors are reversed. Okay? So you always need to reverse your motors in BL Heli or by swapping wires on the motor. Okay? That's the answer. Should I get a tuned antenna for Crossfire or just stick with a stock T? Asks Tweak FPV. Tweak, here's the reason I went with the tuned antenna. Hold on. This will do. So, This is actually an Immortal T, but it's similar to the to the stock antenna. And the problem with the stock antenna is you got the SMA coming out here, and then you have a solder joint up in here that you can't see. And as you twist and wear on it, that solder joint can break. So you're like, your antenna's not straight, so you just grab it and you straighten it. After a while, it breaks off inside, and you don't know it's broken off. You just have terrible range, and then one day you grab it, boom, and it just pops right off. So the tuned antenna... This is the tuned antenna, which is, it's literally just a big hunk of, you can't see because my camera's not focused. It's just a big piece of metal, and then this is a metal barrel, a sleeve, to help, I think, provide a ground plane. And the tuned antenna, I've heard people say it has better performance, and I haven't tested that. But just in terms of durability, it's so much better than the stock antenna. That's the one I use, and I think it's so much better. 5.7 FPV. Yes, I do have a mod. I mod the Tyrannis X9D, not the QX7, to do the replaceable antenna mod. I do have that. I imagine the process is basically the same for the QX7. Giunte, would you do a video on selection of Crossfire products for freestyle use and how to install and set them up? Well, I have a video on how to set up Crossfire, so that's the same. I have a video on antenna mounting. Check my channel for my video on antenna mounting best practices. I talk about how I mount my Crossfire antennas there, and that's about it. Is that it? You put the antenna on, you put the receiver in, and you set it up. Yeah, that's it. Michael Austin asks, can you do a test for RSSI with the different Crossfire antennas? Michael, that's very hard to do, because here's the thing. Each antenna has a different pattern. So like the diamond antenna has less gain up high and more gain out forward, right? So simply flying in a straight line in front of yourself doesn't tell the whole story. And environmental things, especially when you're talking about Crossfire, which can go for miles, environmental things like trees and buildings and reflections off of lakes can come into play. It's very hard to do a range test of the different antennas. The best thing to do is to look at the antenna coverage pattern that the designer has come with and get a sense of what the antenna is intended to do. But here's the bottom line. For me, as a freestyle pilot, kind of doesn't matter. Crossfire has so much freaking range, and it's a little bit of a cop-out, which I acknowledge. But I'm just not a long-range pilot. It's just not what I do. And one of the things people are like, well, why don't you get into long range? But I try to mostly stay in my wheelhouse. There are things I like doing and things I like knowing about, and other things I just am so busy I can hardly pick them up. So I don't really do a lot of long range. I'm not interested in long range. So whatever antenna you use, it's probably going to be fine. And based on that, I choose based on durability. It's also why I run the original little coaxial whisker antenna on my quads instead of the Immortal T. I find that the whisker antenna takes hits better. The Immortal T is bigger and heavier, but that means that once it does get damaged, it just sort of is kinked and falls apart. Whereas those little whisker antennas just kind of, they just knock out of the way and don't get broken. I think they're more durable. And as far as performance goes, it all performs way more than I need it to, so it doesn't really matter. I just don't think about it. Chris D asks in the Discord, will that tuned antenna work with R9? I assume that it will. I mean, 900 megahertz is 900 megahertz. So if it's tuned, then it's tuned. I assume that you can use this tuned Crossfire antenna with an R9 receiver. The only thing is that I believe that Crossfire uses SMA, and I think that R9 uses RPSMA. I can actually check that. Hold on a second. Hold on. Look what I have. Sorry about the microphone bump there. Look what I have. This came in the mail a little while ago. Yes, it is. It's an R9 module. And yes, so you'd need an adapter. This has an RPSMA. This has an SMA, so you need an adapter. But it costs you, 0.4 of a dB, and you're still good. Here's the antenna that comes with this guy. Is it 900 megahertz or is it something else? No one knows. People complaining about getting 300 megahertz antennas. I got to tell you, I mean, come on, which of these looks sexier? Give me a break. This one is red. I do like the red. The antenna's not that sexy, though. Should we be choosing a VTX channel based on an antenna's ideal frequency range or vice versa? Why not just fly on whichever channel we want and not worry? That's a really good question. If you have a network analyzer, an antenna analyzer, and you can find the ideal frequency for your antenna, yes, you absolutely can get a little bit more range out of it. Sometimes maybe a fair, like a lot of range by choosing a frequency that the antenna is optimally tuned for. But it's challenging to know unless you own a network analyzer. So hang on. Hang on one second. Vector network analyzer. 1 second. Let me show you guys what I'm looking for. Yes, this is the one. So if you are willing to spend... hang on. If you are willing to spend $179, you can get this guy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's a shame. I remember. So this is a really cool network analyzer. It costs $179, which is cheap as heck for what you get. It's expensive for like just a hobbyist toy, but the problem is it only goes up to 2.7 gigahertz. You cannot use it for 5 gigahertz antennas. That is a shame. And I don't know of anything under $1,000 for a network analyzer for 5 gig antennas. So never mind. I was going to show you guys a great bargain. Yeah. So if you ideally you would want to get an antenna with a good flat response. Low signal standing wave ratio, low SWR across its whole frequency range. In reality, that's not the case. Plummet FPV asks, when is my new FC and ESC going to be out? The answer is the first batch already came out. I don't know why Race Day Quads shows it as pre-order. It's already out. The first batch sold out immediately. The second batch should be in about a week and a half. Shai's the Owl's SWR meter that I have. No, you're right. Shai's, very good point. Thank you for reminding me. You are right. So that's a good point. This is the Owl RC SWR meter. This can be had from Owl RC, and it's available also on Banggood. Wow, yeah, it's like $100, less than $100, and it does an okay job. It's okay. It does a rough job. It's not as precise as the network analyzer I was showing on screen, though. Let's see here. What do we got in the chat? Let's see. My Tramp VTX won't change settings. I double-checked wiring and the Betaflight ports tab. Here's the reason for that. You're trying to change the settings on your Tramp, Will FPV. You're trying to change the settings on your Tramp using the button or the NFC tag. And the problem is that if you have VTX remote control, Tramp telemetry hooked up, then Betaflight is overriding them. The flight controller is constantly saying, be on this channel, be at this power output. And when you change it with the button, the flight controller just overwrites it. So basically, it's an either-or situation. But you can, let's see if I can find a quad with a recent version of Betaflight on it. And see if I can tell you guys what's up. Hang on. How about this one? This is the Korea. Is this the TT? Or is the TT even smaller? I think this is the TT. This is a Korea quad. I have so many quads right now I need to test and fly. This Korea, I'll say this about Korea. They make gorgeous. Look at these motors. They're silver. They're curved. They are so... I would almost hate to fly them. They're so pretty. And we're going to see if this has a version of Betaflight on it that has the feature that I need to tell you about to make your VTX remote control work correctly. Okay. Let's see. Hang on. Yes. Okay, so there we go. It's a little hard to see this unless you're watching on a desktop. If you're watching on mobile, I apologize. But there's two settings. One is VTX_freak, and one is VTX_power. And if you set both of those to 0, set VTX underscore freak equals 0, set VTX underscore power equals 0. If you do that, then basically VTX remote control will stop working. Okay? It will stop working. Now, what that means is that you no longer can change your transmit power and your channel using your goggle OSD or using your Lua script, but now you can use the NFC tag and it will work. So it's an either or thing. That's the answer, Will FPV. Now, let's back up, Will FPV. Maybe what you're trying to do is actually use the OSD and the Lua script, and it's still not working. Well, then it's just either a wiring. You need to wire the telemetry wire from the tramp to the TX pad, not the RX pad, the TX pad on the UART, and then you just enable tramp telemetry peripheral on that UART. Boom, you're good to go. You should be good to go. Mr. Hauf85, what do you think is the future of PID tuning? Is it going to be an automatic PID tuning feature? There's two things. What I've seen is that automatic PID tuning has never been very successful. And part of the reason for that is that, number one, quads are very dynamic. So a quadcopter, the situation that makes a quadcopter fly well when it's hovering or flying slowly is very different than the situation when it's flying aggressively or in a sharp turn. So when we have these auto-tuning algorithms, what they'll typically do is they'll hover the quad and then they'll kind of move the quad around, or they'll watch how the quad moves while you fly. But they don't, however you fly when you're auto-tuning, as soon as you fly differently, the quad isn't going to be tuned optimally. So what I think makes a quad fly better is not necessarily automatic PID tuning, but it is making a wider tuning envelope so that the quad can fly well under a wide variety of flight conditions, kind of almost regardless of the PIDs. And that's why we see so many dynamic things in Betaflight. And it actually goes back to this Betaflight versus Butterflight argument. Get ready in the chat. It's about to go to hell. Because the Betaflight code has a lot of what I've heard. I don't want to misrepresent their position, but a lot of what the Butterflight devs seem to actually it's Ornery D, and I think he's actually a Helio dev. So I apologize, Butterflight, if I didn't mean to misrepresent you. But they talk about how Betaflight has all these hacks, like anti-gravity is a hack, set point weight is a hack, and the idea is that the Betaflight tries to respond to changing aerodynamic situations by adding in sort of conditional things. So anti-gravity raises the I gain when the throttle is moving rapidly. Okay? Actually, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I actually believe that I was the one who proposed that to Boris years ago. I said, why don't we boost the I gain when the throttle's moving? And then anti-gravity came from that. That's my little contribution to Betaflight. Now, someone else out there is like, no, I thought of that. Well, maybe we both thought of it at the same time, but I wish I had that message history. So some people say, oh, well, that's a hack. What you really need to do is you need to have a properly designed PID controller that will just work properly under all conditions. That seems to be the Helio position. But that's really, really hard to do. It's like saying we're going to simulate this very complex process. Well, what if we just took shortcuts that got us close? Because simulating it would require a supercomputer. And that's where I feel like we are now. The Helio guys are trying to come up with this perfect PID controller that responds ideally under all conditions without any conditionals or hacks. And the Betaflight guys seem to be taking a more pragmatic approach, which is if we can identify this one place where the PID controller fails, just put a little hack in to recognize when that's happening and fix it. Which is better? I don't know. I've gotten a little bit off field there. How do you offer suggestions to the devs? Asks Rotor Ryan. I'm going to show you the answer to that. Hold on, Ryan. Rotor Ryan asks, how do you offer suggestions to the devs? You guys, Betaflight is an open source project. So you could go to GitHub, and actually you can just search on GitHub for Betaflight. And what you'll find, what you want to find is, let's see. I want to find... No. Let's try GitHub Betaflight. Here we go. Betaflight. This is the Betaflight GitHub repo. This is where all the Betaflight code is. And what you can do is you can go to the issues. And issues is where you communicate with the devs. Now, do not abuse this power. Okay? This is not for support. This is not for I can't get my receiver to work. This is for bug reporting and feature requesting. And the first thing you need to do is you need to search for my feature and see if there's an existing open issue discussing the issue, okay? And if you do, and you search and you do your due diligence and you don't find the issue that you're looking for or the feature that you're suggesting, you hit new issue and you submit feature request and you type, you know, make me coffee when I land, okay, etc. And then you just submit the new issue. And that's how you communicate with the devs. If it's a bug report, you report a bug there. Again, do your due diligence, search beforehand, and see if somebody else has suggested it or has got the bug. But then if you do that, go for it. And anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. And then, as Viamuth Fosbat says, then they tell you why they won't do it. And that is a joke, but it's also kind of true. So... a lot of time, I mean, Betaflight is a great big project. It's not just two guys in their basement. No offense, Kalen. It's not just two guys in their basement hacking it out. So, I mean, when you make a submission request, they're going to say, well, we've got this other thing we're working on that gets in the way of that. But sometimes they just do it, so. Swamp Dog asks, over in the Discord... my OSD is not showing what I programmed into Betaflight. It just shows the stock runcam info, craft name, battery voltage. What should I check? So, Swamp Dog, there's a little bit of confusion going on there because the Betaflight OSD and the runcam OSD are two separate things. Your camera has an OSD built in, but if you have a Betaflight flight controller that has an OSD, then you want to turn the runcam OSD off. And the way you turn your camera OSD off is you get the joystick that came with it. I don't have one handy. And you hold up for 2 seconds on the joystick. And that puts you in the OSD configuration menu. And for runcam cameras, that's how you'll turn off the runcam OSD. Now, the other question is, why is your Betaflight OSD not showing up? And the way I would test Betaflight OSD is put your goggles on, put them on the right channel, and plug your quad in. And just as the screen comes up, you should see the Betaflight splash screen. Sometimes you put things in the Betaflight OSD and they're like off the bottom of the screen by accident. So just see if you see the splash screen at all, okay? And then if you do, you know your Betaflight OSD is working. If that isn't working, something more fundamental is wrong, Swamp Dog. We could talk about it over on the Discord to dig in, but that's what I would say. Just see if you even see the Betaflight splash screen when you plug in to verify that the OSD is even working at all. Oh, yeah, UAV Tech. Mark Spatz, UAV Tech says, Betaflight devs don't get paid. Keep that in mind. Yeah, Betaflight is 100% volunteer. I mean, you may know about, like, the Betaflight flight controller or the Betaflight bag. A little bit of money goes to the Betaflight project, but there's, like, 10, 20 devs at least. I mean, there's way more than that who just do little pull requests here or there. But of the main devs, there's, I would say 10 or maybe 20 guys, maybe at least 10, I think. And they all have day jobs and they just do this for fun. What's wrong with them? I don't know. Life breaks? No. I am not here. My clothes are not here for your entertainment. Yeah, Rogue Factor, my flight controller and ESC, they're out of stock. They're back order. We're waiting for stock. It should be in about a week and a half from now. I don't know why it says pre-order as if it hadn't come out yet. What do I think about, Invert FPV, you've asked this several times. What do I think about sorry I missed it. What do I think about the new Luminaire batteries? The Luminaire N2O batteries, I think they're an okay budget battery. I tested them, actually, and I have been waiting to release the test results because I have a website I'm going to release. In fact, guess what? It's not quite 100% ready, but check this out. You've seen this before. I'm now Okay, it's official. I'm now publicizing the URL. You can go start checking this out. Consider this website to still be in like beta, maybe, but the results are here. I'm not sure. I think it's Xylo. No, they're not there. I don't know why they haven't been added, but you can actually look at the results from any of the batteries I've tested. And this is where I'm going to be posting results going forward. So the Luminaire Xylo batteries, Xylo, I thought they were okay budget batteries. They had decent capacity for their weight, but not like ultra high discharge rate. That's how I saw it. Purple XXD. If someone was an experienced programmer, how would they get to help out the devs? Well, what I would suggest you do is you download a copy of the repo and start familiarizing yourself with the code and look for areas where you feel like you could contribute. If you look at new features like GPS rescue mode, that was basically driven by one guy. And he said, I mean, I don't want to, it's always a risk when I say that because I could be wrong and I don't want to discredit people who contributed. But my impression is that there was one sort of main dev whose GPS rescue mode was his baby. And he was just like, I'm going to make this happen. And he started submitting and he made it happen. So you can look at open issues on the repo and see if there are any that speak to something you might like to work on, or you can just reach out to one of the devs and who you see commenting on GitHub and say, hey, is there something you need help with? Yeah. Joseph Rapson asks, if you were buying a goggle module, which would you buy regardless of cost? That's tough. So here's the thing. Rapid Fire and Clearview module. Well, Clearview module a little bit TBD, but I have done some preliminary testing. I feel comfortable saying this Clearview module is better than like a LaForge or a TrueD. Is it better than Rapid Fire? Well, we'll have to see. But Rapid Fire and Clearview have better performance at a much higher cost. Okay, we said regardless of cost. I find the user interface on both of these guys to be this, and frankly the Rapid Fire, although this is worse. The user interface on the Clearview is single button presses. So you push the button, short push to move through the menus, long push to accept. And it's really clunky. When you're picking channels, you got to just go click, 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 click. Fat Shark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Raceband 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm exaggerating a little, but not. And if you overshoot, you got to go all the way back around again. It's so clunky. And so although the performance is very, very good, living with it on a day-to-day basis, I kind of go, oh, I don't know. Rapid Fire is better. It has a joystick. But what LaForge has that none of these guys have is it has a really good in-goggle OSD. With LaForge V4, you know how the LaForge menu you can see on the outside of the screen? You see that exact same thing inside the goggles. You don't ever need to take the goggles off to use your LaForge. And that is so freaking nice. It almost makes me like LaForge best, even though like Rapid Fire is not that much more expensive than LaForge and has better performance. So older LaForge V4 with mod or LaForge 3.3? No way. LaForge V4 all the way. LaForge V4 with OSD beats the earlier LaForges handily. And I also think that's why LaForge, to me, beats something like a TrueD. Again, not taking cost into consideration. LaForge is way more expensive than TrueD. But TrueD doesn't have an in-goggle OSD. The Dock King does. And I think that Furious is working on a module right now that has a built-in OSD. Oops, I hope I wasn't not supposed to say that. But right now, today, if you buy a TrueD, you don't get an OSD, an in-goggle OSD. And the LaForge in-goggle OSD is so amazing. It really, that, I have to say, I almost would give up the increased performance of Rapid Fire and Clearview just because LaForge is so nice to use. So, John Doe, show us how you organize your stuff. John Doe, I have a table. And then I just have all my stuff in a big pile on the table. That's how I organize my stuff. Steely FPV, any thoughts on Achilles Plus with in-goggle OSD? Yes! Yes! In fact, FPVknowitall.com. Ultimate FPV shopping list. Watch this. This is, hey, it's coming up on the end of an hour. Time for a little plug for myself. This is my website, FPVknowitall.com, which has the ultimate FPV shopping list. And here's the thing. I review all kinds of good products, but sometimes I don't have time to review all the good products. And you don't have time to go through hours and hours of reviews. Some of you do, but not everybody. So I made this website, FPVknowitall.com, Ultimate FPV shopping list, which helps you dial in on things that you might want to buy. And one of the things here is best modules. Yeah. So right now, actually, I got to change this because I think the Eachine Pro 58, you actually cannot get it anymore with, I think they reduced the amount of memory on it. And I don't think you can install Achilles anymore. So Achilles is this firmware made by this Greek guy named GC9N, and it's this awesome firmware for Fat Shark modules. And here's the thing, though. This is the Real ACC RX 5808 Pro plus OSD, and you can get it at Banggood if you want to shop from Banggood for international guys. You can get it at Race Day Quads if you're in the U.S. You could have this 2 days from now, and you can order it with Achilles pre-installed. And it's got built-in OSD, so the mod is already done, so you can see the menus. And it's 40 freaking bucks. Now, you go, okay, well, is the performance as good as something like a Trudy or a LaForge that's more expensive? And I don't know the answer to that. But it's 40 freaking bucks. Come on. Take it easy. Shice in Discord is telling me his Pro 58 has the latest Achilles and OSD. Yes, Shice, but when did you buy it? When did you buy it? That's the question. If I heard a rumor that recent ones didn't have enough memory to install it. I could be wrong about that. If I am, you tell me. So, all right. Woo! Okay, 1 hour. 1 hour in. How long is this live stream going to go? My live streams always go for at least 2 hours, but maybe we'll go longer today because I haven't done a live stream in a long time. Actually, you know what? That's not true. That's not true because, yeah, I know. I'm going to give you guys another plug, but wait till you see what. No, that's not what I'm going to show you. Let's see. Here we go. So I have been doing some work with Quad Camp. You guys know about Quad Camp, which is where me and the other Rotor Riot guys will come to your town and hang out with you for a weekend and build quads, fly quads, just learn, have fun, whatever you want to do. And the big problem with that is that it costs a lot of money to fly to your town, and there's only like 4 of us, and we can't fly every weekend. So we started Quad Camp Online, which is a project to kind of split the difference, right? You can have more interaction with people like me and Stingy and Drew, the Drib, oh my God, Wild Willie's been involved, A-Noob's been involved. You just basically hang out with us and all of our cool friends and ask questions and chat, whatever, over the internet. And it's being implemented as a Twitch channel. You can go subscribe to this Twitch channel right now. Wait. Do you follow or subscribe? I'm not 100% sure how Twitch works. But basically, you can go click this little bell, and you can find out when we are streaming. Okay? It is also a Discord server. Oh, well, that's not helpful. If you go over to this video on Stingy's channel, there's a link to the Discord. Here, I'll put it right here. Watch this. We have the technology. Boom, right here in the chat. Bam! You can go join the Discord server. It doesn't cost any money. But if you want to join the Quad Camp Patreon, there's also a Patreon page, then you get access to exclusive content. And in addition to that, you get access to a Rotor Riot, a back end of the Rotor Riot store where you get a pretty big discount on all Rotor Riot branded stuff. So what we're trying to do is get the sort of connection of Quad Camp without actually having to get on an airplane. And I mentioned that because I'm live streaming every Monday at 8 p.m., which I've never allowed myself to commit to a live stream schedule because I always want the ability to say, screw it, I'm too busy, I don't want to do it tonight. The whole reason I quit my job is because I wanted to be able to do whatever the frick I wanted, whenever I frickin' wanted, and now the frickin' got me on a schedule. So since I'm streaming over there, that's why I'm streaming over here as well. Okay. All right. Can you, License Drive says, please, can you or someone do a day at Quad Camp video for those of us who just can't get there because we're in a different country? I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that, License Drive. Do you just want a picture of like what goes on? Or are you, I'm not really sure what you're looking for. Tell me down in the comments. I'll try and keep an eye out for it. Super chat. Rich FPV says, is it safe to mix ESC brands and models if I only have a similar one in the field? Yeah, it's safe. As long as you stay under the amp rating, you're fine. It doesn't even have to be the same. If you're pulling 20 amps and you have a mix of 30 and 35 or 40 amps, that's fine. The bigger ESCs are going to waste weight, but it's not going to hurt anything. In general, I think you will probably get the best performance by having 4 of the same. But I would bet you a good number of dollars that if I were to give most pro pilots a quad with mixed ESCs, they couldn't tell the difference. So probably it doesn't matter. DJI DoDaddy asks, DJI Goggles RE and OcuSync. Why is nobody talking about this for FPV? I did a review of OcuSync and Goggles RE, and the latency is unacceptable for racing and freestyle. For a wing, for an autonomous quad, yeah, absolutely. But for racing and freestyle, the latency, even on the analog input. And I heard that there was a firmware update for the OcuSync video transmitter that improved the latency. I haven't tested that, so fair warning. But the one that I tested, the latency was just unacceptable. So that's the answer why no one's talking about it. Also, the Goggles RE is huge. It's massive. So, well, not compared to some goggles, I guess. My take on it is, if you already have like a Mavic Pro and you want to use the light bridge, then it's not bad to have. And hey, you could also use it for racing. But for racing and freestyle, no. Just get some Fat Sharks or something. How do I mount my quads to the wall? Asks. I can't say I lost your name. Hang on. I have to find the right search term. Dang. Oh, what's the search term? Fail. Oh, there it is. There it is. So I want to show you guys this. Watch this. Here in Discord, somebody wrote a Discord bot. Watch this. If I type !Botwell, they call it Botwell, like Joshua Bardwell. And then, let's see, the best way to store your mini quadcopters. Botwell goes and finds a video for you. And here's the video. I'll give you the URL in the chat. This is how I store my quadcopters. URL in the chat. You can go check the video out. It's basically a sticker. Let me get that chat off the screen. There we go. It's basically a 3M hook, a removable hook that sticks to the wall, and a rubber band. So that's how I do it. 57FPV asks, what do you think? When will we take the next step in FPV resolution with comparable price weights and, of course, latency? Yeah. People ask, why can't we have high def video? And the answer is you can, just the latency is going to be impossible. Oh, well, why can't we have high def video with low latency? You can, but it costs $1,000 and it weighs a kilogram. Oh, well, why can't we have high def video with low latency and lightweight and low cost? Oh, and by the way, when you smash it into the ground at 70 miles per hour, it doesn't break. And I go, oh, now you see the problem. That is really hard to do. I will say, FPV Model has recently teased a new FPV-focused high-def video system or a digital video system. I'm not sure it's high def, but a digital video system. It'd be interesting to see what comes of that. All the solutions so far, like Connex ProSight, have been... Connex ProSight was so close to getting it right. It was just barely affordable. The latency was not bad. It was usable. But it was just barely too expensive, too heavy, and too fragile to see widespread adoption. And I think it's going to be a real challenge to crack that nut. If you look at the interview I did with his name, was it John Adams? I keep getting his name wrong. Hang on. It's the guy from Horizon Hobby. He talked about... Here's the link to the video in the chat. This is my video. The interview I did. At the end of the interview, we talked about why digital FPV video is so challenging. And there are some fundamental physical constraints, pardon me, in terms of the bandwidth that we need and the bandwidth we have available that make it really challenging. Honestly, I don't think it's going to get much better anytime soon, but I would love to be wrong about that. Tyrannis, apologize for saying your name wrong, says that FPV's encoder board is E10 Auvidia. So let me just look up what E10 Auvidia means. E10 is a compact H.264 encoder module. Is it doing high def? That's the first. It is high def. Hang on. Here's what I'm being told FPV model is using. Yeah, high def is high bandwidth. It's going to be very, very hard to do. What I would love to see is digital standard def. Even 640 by 480 would be fine as long as it was digital and I didn't have to worry about frickin' channel stomping. But the problem is that because even digital standard def uses more bandwidth than we really have available. I wish I could find a link to the FPV model. Let's see if I can find it. That can't be it, can it? No. I don't know what that is. I can't find a link to it. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. What am I drinking? Michael Austin, I am drinking a peach mango carbonated soda. It's Crystal Light peach mango. Delicious. And a soda stream, which carbonates it at home. And I have to say, if you have a SodaStream home carbonation device, one of the things they tell you is that you only carbonate plain water. You make carbonated water, then you put the flavors in the water. But here's the problem. You got the carbonated water, and then you put the powder in, and now you got to shake it up. But if you shake it up, it fizzes over, right? Because you got to mix the powder in. So what I do is I make the carbonated water. I put the powder in another cup. I pour a little bit of the carbonated water in the second cup. I stir that up. Then I pour that back in, and that's a real hassle. So I said, well, I'm just going to try it. So I mixed up one of these, and I put it in the carbonation machine, and I gently touched the button, and it went, beep. Nothing bad happened. I went, beep. Nothing bad. I finished carbonating the thing. Nothing bad happened. Well, here's what I was missing. When you're carbonating the bottle, it seals the top of the bottle so the gas can't get out, right? Makes sense. As soon as I crack the bottle to take it away, it goes... explodes all over the kitchen because something about having the flavoring in the water makes it... So, yeah, when they say with a SodaStream, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see here. I got some super chats coming in. Let's see. I missed them. I apologize. Super chats from almost 30 minutes ago. Tiro Nurami in the super chat says, gives me 10 euros. Thank you for the euros. Pocket VNA goes up to 6 gigahertz when calibrated, and it's around $400. There's a Pocket VNA which goes up to 6 gigahertz and is around $400 instead of HP Agilent stuff, which is 10K. Interesting. I'm not familiar with that product. Let me look for Pocket VNA. Pocket VNA. 2-port bidirectional VNA from Picotech. Yeah. Interesting. Oh, interesting. Oh, look at this, guys. We're talking about testing antennas. Here we go. This is from Picotech, the Pico VNA 106. Looks like it probably has USB. Goes up to 6 gigahertz. 4-receiver architecture. It's 4,000 pounds. No, that's clearly not the right product. That's clearly not the right product. 4,000. He says $400. 6 gig vector. No, that's not it. Where is it? Pocket VNA. Oh, here we go. This has got to be it. Pocket VNA. Yeah. Oh, there you go. 490 US or 390 euro. Oh, it's 400. So it's still like $500. That's a great value for test equipment, but still out of reach of many hobbyists. There you go. John Potts asks in the super chat, gives £5. Why is it that I can spend 30 minutes looking for my crash quad, but my buddy can find it in 2 minutes? I don't know, man. It's just bad luck. It's just bad luck. As soon as you give up, then you find it. I got to tell you guys, if you have a problem with losing your quads, okay, let's see here. What do we got? Hang on. If you have problems with losing your quads, consider something like this. Oh, wait. Oh, hang on. No. Let's do it this way. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going away from the chat for a second. I can't hear you, chat. Oh, boom. What is this? What have I got here? This. If you lose your quads, you need something like this. This is a Hellgate buzzer. And what this... Hang on. There we go. Let's zoom in just a tiny bit more. The Hellgate buzzer is a tiny device, and actually, you may have heard of the Hellgate buzzer before and not realized how small it is. This is how small it is. And the idea is that when your quad loses power, it starts shrieking at you. That's it. That's all it does. It has a built-in battery, little 1-cell LiPo, and a loud as the devil buzzer, and it shrieks at you. But hang on. That's not all. This is the same frickin' thing from Full Speed. And it's a little bit cheaper, too. And this is the same freaking thing from V-Fly. This one doesn't have a label on it. Hey, you got to put V-Fly. You got to put a little sticker on your thing. So, if you lose your quadcopters, consider one of these little things. When I first heard about this, now I'm going to go... Hang on, I'm going to go back to the desk so I can look these things up for you. Hello, chat. I'm back. Rogue Factor, why do you say V-Fly is the best option? Because I haven't dug deep into the... oh, hang on. Mic. There you go. Now you can hear me. Why do you say V-Fly is the best option, Rogue Factor? Because I haven't dug deep into the features of each one. But if we look... So, like, we've got V-Fly buzzer. Let's see if I can find it. The V-Fly buzzer... All of these work after... They go off when you lose your battery. The V-Fly buzzer is $16. Full speed buzzer is $10. Are you kidding me? And the Hellgate buzzer, and I have to say the Hellgate buzzer is the original. Hellgate is not the first sort of autonomous buzzer, but all the ones that came before it were much bigger. The Hellgate, the guys who invented the Hellgate, really got it down to size. And then, very shortly thereafter, the Full Speed and the V-Fly came out. Where's the V-Fly? I don't see the V-Fly. Oh, well. They came out. Yeah, here's the V-Fly. And so if you're kind of the kind of person who's angry about cloning, you would definitely want to give your money to the Hellgate guys. They were the first to market with this idea. If you're a more pragmatic person, then you might want to get one of these other ones. But why is the V-Fly better? The V-Fly is stupid loud. Well, they're all stupid loud. They're all really freaking loud. Boone says the Hellgate sucks having to power the quad on for a second to disarm the beep. Yeah, both of them all of them have some kind of logic to prevent the quad from beeping when you just actually unplug. Snoopy says V-Fly is the loudest, cheapest, and also the biggest. Anyway, there you go. If you lose quads, and especially if your battery ejects, the thing is, though, What if your battery doesn't eject? Then you got to wait for your battery to die before you can find your stupid quad. I don't know. Is there a workaround for that? Avolit FPV says VFly has a button to turn off the beep. Oh, that's nice. I'm not sure. So these things will beep for like 2 days, 3 days. And I'm not actually sure that's an advantage. Let's say I'm flying at the park and I crash my quad to tree and I can't get it out of the tree. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'll have to come back tomorrow. Meanwhile, all night at the park, my quad is going beep, 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 beep. I'm not sure I feel good about that. Kill. FPV says it also works as a normal buzzer. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you can turn it on with a switch. Great. JRB asks, tell us about a GPS guard locator. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Rotor Ryan, Crossfire is on 2 TX pads, S-Bus S-Port on RX pads. Can I resource map? Ryan, you've lost me, Ryan. If you have Crossfire on 2 TX pads, but Crossfire doesn't use 2 TX pads, it uses TX and RX, S-Bus S-Port on the RX pads, can I resource map? You're going to have to give me a little more, Ryan. Sorry about that, man. FPV Escape asks, I'm catching up my super chats, guys. FPV Escape asks, I'm getting random voids in black box telemetry using Radix FC and Crossfire. Any ideas why? Anytime there's a dropout in your black box log, it could be that CPU load was too high. When CPU load gets very high, non-essential processes are dropped, and black box is one of them. If you're using an SD card instead of a data flash chip, the SD card could be getting bogged down. Even if you have a very fast SD card, it's designed for writing big chunks of data. Like when you're writing 4K video, you have a massive chunk of data, whoosh, which you shove into the card. But black box is constantly writing very tiny chunks of data, and it can actually spam, especially if you have a higher logging rate, it can spam an SD card and the card can get backed up. Those are two things that I can think of that could be causing it. Lower your logging rate, FPV Escape, or lower your PID loop rate and see if that, so you get your CPU utilization down. Kausper gives 10 pounds and says, could you go through the current state of F7 FCs with Betaflight? Are the performance issues fixed and the bugs worked out? Will there ever be a Bardwell F7 FC? Yep. I'll be happy to do that. So the issue that Kausper is talking about is that it used to be that Betaflight, even though F7 is a faster processor, it used to be that Betaflight ran slower on F7s almost than F4s. An F4 could be overclocked and Betaflight would run really fast. F7s, it kind of struggled. It was not optimized for the F7. It is now optimized thanks to Andrei Mironov, who goes by D-Hertz is his handle. It was one of the main, if not the main developer who focused on optimizing Betaflight for the F7 chip. Betaflight with the F7 can now run. It depends on exactly what you're running. If you're running barometer and accelerometer, if you're running multi-shot, I'm pretty sure it can do 32-32. If you're running D-shot, you may only be able to do 32-16 or 16-16. But yeah, F7, and you can, I'm 99% sure you can overclock F7s now as well if you choose to and get them even up to 32-32. So yeah. If you feel like going for an F7 now is the time when it's worth it. A few months ago, I said, don't bother because you're not going to do anything with it anyway. You could run an F4 faster, but that's not true anymore. And the F7s that I recommend, 1 second. Here we go. Flight controllers. I just recently added a bunch of F7s to my Ultimate FPV shopping list. Well, one of the ones that I added was the Kakute F7 and F7 AIO. I have always been a big fan of the Kakute. In fact, I actually wrote the manual for the Kakute. I really love the layout. Is a little so. With my flight controller, I really wanted to have a very simple layout that it was easy to tell what to put where. But with the Kakute, they went a different direction. They just give you all the UARTs broken out. So you could basically, the problem was with my flight controller, sometimes you can't do all the things you want to do because you just don't have a UART. But with the Kakute, they break out all the UARTs. It has a soft-mounted gyro. It's a very nice, it has an SD card, which mine doesn't have anymore. Yeah, but so that's one that I recommend, has really good performance. One thing about the Kakute, though, is They actually don't use the best gyro. It's not, there's, I forget the number that they use, but it's not the most noise free of the 32K gyros. So, okay. And then the other one that I like a lot is the Airbot Omni NXT F7. Airbot, this is Airbot products can be a little hit or miss, but I think the NXT F7 is a pretty good one. I like what they've been doing with their layout, with their making these power pads more accessible, and they've got, this is really great. And if you look at this, ribbon cable, see how they've run the ribbon cable nice and tight into the gyro enclosure so it doesn't stick out. This is one reason why I actually don't like the Betaflight F7 anymore. I have the Betaflight F7 in one of my quads, and it has a ribbon cable that kind of sticks out and around, and it got tore up and broke. And the good news is that the Betaflight F7 has 2 gyros, so as long as you want to use the MPU 6000, which is actually soldered on the board, you don't need that ribbon cable. But it kind of annoyed me, and it kind of turned me off to the board as a whole. So those are 2 F7s that I look at. Not the only ones out there, but 2 that I actually pick and think are worth looking at. The other question he asked is a Bardwell F7 coming? And the answer to that is that that is not the next thing that I'm working on. I can't tell you what the next thing that I'm working on is. It's not an F7. But I will say that I don't think we're going to put too much more development effort into the JBF4. I think the JBF4 is a really nice, mature product. It's kind of where it needs to be. I've kind of done what I want to do with it. The problem with an F7, though, is the chip, what they've told me is it's going to be like raise the price of the board by like 10 or 12 bucks to put an F7 on there. The chip itself is more expensive, and the F4 still really gets the job done, and my focus has always been more on value than performance. So I'd rather sell you an F4 for 35 bucks than an F7 for 45 or 50 bucks. But now that the F4 is kind of okay, we kind of got that. It's kind of where it needs to be. Then maybe there's time to start focusing on a little bit more expensive board. No time frame on that, though. It's still, a lot to go. Rich FPV, we answered that. Rich FPV, Doe Daddy, I answered that. I think I'm caught up on the super chats. Thank you. Going back to the regular chat. XXGR says, you are working on a JB motor. That's not a question, XX. That's a statement. But it's a true statement. I am working on a JB motor. I'll tell you what I can show you. Here's what I can show you. This is not the JB motor. This is just a tribute to the best motor in the world. No, I say that. That's a Tenacious D song, tribute. It kind of is true, though, because I got the idea. People always said, hey, when are you going to make a motor? And I said, I'm not going to make something just to make it. I'm going to make something when I have something to contribute. And after I flew the EFA 2407 motors, I was so blown away with their performance that I tried to reach out to EFA and say, hey, can we do, I like this motor so much, can we do something together? And unfortunately, EFA kind of went out of business. And so then I said, okay, well, Luminaire, can we make a motor that's kind of like basically not exactly a copy of the EFA 2407, because there are a few things I would change, but it was inspired by the EFA 2407, so in a sense it is a tribute to the best motor in the world. And this is not the motor. This is a prototype that they sent me that turned out to be the wrong KV, and this is actually a really fantastic 6-inch motor, but I don't want to make a 6-inch motor. So I have 10 of these motors. 4 are on a quad right now, and they will never exist again, but this is something like the motor might look when it comes out, and I hope it's going to come out soon. So yeah, the biggest holdup on the motor right now, you guys are going to laugh. They said, what color do you want the motor to be? And I said, well, I like purple and yellow. And they were like, well, that's a little bit weird. And I was like, hey, you asked. And they said, okay, we'll do it. And the problem is this purple color is given the guy when they laser etch the markings on the bell, and the purple color is giving the laser etching guys fits. It's not. That's the holdup right now. I haven't even gotten a production sample of the motor yet because they can't get the etching to work right. So that's what we're waiting for right now. But that's going to be coming soon. It's going to be a 2407 size. It's going to be around 2400 kV. And the goal of the motor is to be able to fly heavier props in freestyle while still having smooth performance and good prop wash handling, because the 2407 are going to just be so freaking torquey and powerful that you won't have to run like a 5x4.3. You can run a 50/50 or a 5x4.8 and still have awesome thrust, but also smooth performance. That's what I experienced with the EFA and what I wanted to try and something unique that I felt I could bring to the market now that EFA was gone. Otherwise, I would just say buy EFAs, but they don't exist anymore. So, yeah, strangers have the etched part gold and the other part purple. It's true. You could do that. At this point, the guys from Get FPV have been working on it. I said to them, I said, look, guys, it doesn't have to be purple. We could go. And they were like, no, we'll get it. It's okay. And what football team is it? Is it the Gators? I don't know, because I don't really follow football very much. But somebody said, oh, so you're a such and such fan. And I was like, no, not really. Those are just some colors I like together. Shice asks in the Discord. The patrons are getting their money's worth in the Discord, because like Shice has asked like 5 questions. Keep it up, Shice. I'm not telling you to stop. Can you do a spec build with the JB2407 and the JB stack, ideally with a hyper low CG frame? I am going to do that. Now, hang on. Pause that question, because speaking of spec builds, this is a spec build that I am working on now. And this is, so it's got the Rotor Riot CL1 frame, the Holy Bro stack, and I am doing the most detailed series of build videos I've ever done to try and help people who are total noobs in the hobby get into the hobby and be able to build a quadcopter. But after that process is done, I am thinking about doing a spec build. I've always resisted doing a spec build of my own product because I don't want to like, I like a lot of different products. But if I have a motor and I have a flight controller and I have an ESC out, I maybe should do a spec build. And I'm thinking about doing that once the motor comes out. And I don't know what the frame is going to be, but I got to tell you. Where is it? Here it is. I got to tell you guys, I'm really impressed. This is the Catalyst Machine Works Smooth Operator, and I'm really impressed with it. And I'm not saying that's what I'm going to do for the spec build, but I've always flown the Chameleon TI and the Rooster, and I don't know. Maybe I'm ready for something just a little tighter. I don't know. The Smooth Operator is definitely tighter. It's not as tight as it seems like, because actually this plate comes off and you have the bottom plate is hollow here. So you have a little more room than it looks like you have, but I don't know. Think about it. Cameron, I don't have a hyper-low CG. Let's look at it. Let's look at the hyper-low CG. Can I get a bigger picture? There we go. Give me a bigger picture. Uh-huh. I see. Interesting. Next, please. So the hyperlow CG is using a similar technique to the smooth operator. By the way, you can't say smooth operator. You have to say it like the song, you know, smooth operator. You have to hit that ray. You cannot say it at smooth operator. It uses a similar technique to the smooth operator in that it's putting the arms inside the bottom plate. That takes up room inside the stack, but it also centralizes the weight and gets the weight closer to the motor line. In fact, I see a lot of similarities here, to be honest. Battery straps, good. Yep. Interesting. Here's the bottom. And one of the things now, is that a 20 millimeter or is that 36 millimeter? That almost looks like it might be 20 millimeter. Maybe it's 36. One of the things about these builds is that they do have a lot more sort of pieces of hardware. And it's one of the things I really like about the Chameleon TI and the Rooster. Well, the Rooster less so because it has separate arms. Is they have relatively few pieces of hardware. One of the things the Smooth Operator does is it has TPU printed sort of cushions or bumpers. And basically the front end camera is connected to the body. Well, you can't, it's difficult to show on camera, but it's connected with a TPU part that slots in and essentially gives a little bit of cushioning and vibration protection. Interesting. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Not hyper low. I don't hate it. Anyway, lots of different frames out there. Let's see. Catalyst Machine Works is awesome, says Rotor Ryan. And Armatan told a few of us Vegas guys to screw. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I think if I were to do a spec build with a Smooth Operator, one of the things that I've, as I get more into the hobby and I get to know the people, like you do some projects because you want to work with somebody as much as because you like their product. So I kind of would like to find an excuse to do more work with Neil Whiteley, who Catalyst Machine Works is a great company, and Neil's a great guy, and that's almost as much a motivation to do something with him as the goodness of his frame, although he does have a good frame. Take a look. MC Creation says, take a look at the Transframe Freedom V2. Let's do that. Transframe Freedom V2. Okay. Transtech Freedom V2. Yeah. So interesting. I don't love this front end. I'm not sure why. Can I get this bigger? No, it doesn't get bigger. Just this, I'm suspicious of where this attaches. It's very similar to how the Rooster attaches, doesn't it? Interesting. Yeah. I see the similarities to the Rooster, but it doesn't have the slanted top here, so where does the GoPro go? You must need a 3D printed GoPro mount or something. Everybody's doing these squashed builds. How does it? Does it got one screw? Is it literally one screw and then it slots in here? That's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now the floss style. Turtle FPV asks about the floss style. Now that you know what? That's clearly okay. I see. No. Oh, give me a break. Don't do that. Don't do that, Banggood. No. Where's the real? The Hyperlight floss style. Yeah. Now Bob Ruge's frames are great designs. I have never gotten into the floss because I've always sort of mentally thought of them as a racing frame. The original floss was very, very popular racing frame, still is. They always just for freestyle, they feel a little bit too sparse to me. I don't know why. I could be wrong. Maybe if I built one, I'd love it. Everybody who flies them really seems to like them, but they just feel a little bit too sparse to me, and I just feel like I want a little bit more there. I don't know. It could just be a preconception that I shouldn't do. So let's see here. Rotor Ryan gives $10 in the super chat and asks, I'm considering running Betaflight on a race flight, Millivolt and Revolt. Race flight uses 2 TX pads for Crossfire and 2 RX pads for S-Port. So how do I hook up my Crossfire and cam control after switching to Betaflight? Ryan, I don't know the answer to that. I appreciate you giving another $10. I don't know the answer to that. I know that when you run Betaflight on Revolt, there are some hoops you have to jump through to get everything working right. Raceflight, it doesn't really use 2 TX pads for Crossfire. That can't be. I think it's doing some tricks where actually it's using an RX. I mean, it says TX on the silk screen, but it's really an RX. And so the question would be how Betaflight maps those resources. But I got to tell you, whenever I hear about people using Betaflight on a Revolt, I'm like, why? I mean, did you already own the Revolt, but you kind of didn't like Flight 1, so you wanted to switch? Okay, I could see it. But don't buy a Revolt just to put Betaflight on it. It's not designed for that, and it's a little kludgy to get it working, and it just is a bit of a hassle. For $10, I wish I could give you a better answer, Ryan. I don't know the answer to that, though. Let's see here. What do you do for hot motors, asks Hogan. What do you do for hot motors? Okay, so if you have hot motors, the first thing to ask yourself is, am I overpropping my motors? Now, this is not very likely on a 5-inch quad because our 5-inch motors are just so beefy these days. They can handle almost any 5-inch quad or prop you put on there. But you see it more often if you've got like 1104 motors and you're 1104 7500 kV. You're trying to run tri-blade 3-inch props. Well, maybe you do a little better on 2.5-inch props or bi-blade props. So if you're over propping, you're going to get hot motors. And the key characteristic is all motors are going to be hot, all of them, right? Because they're all going to. Usually the back motors are a little hotter because they're working a little harder. Another thing to check is the motor screws. So if the motor screws are too long and touch the windings, the motors will get super hot. You may just destroy the motors, but depending on how bad you've damaged the winding, you get current flowing from the motor winding through the screw, through the frame, and back to ground, and the motor will get hot. Now, if you use the same screws on all the motors, you could have this happening on all the motors. Sometimes you'll have it just on one motor. This is especially likely to be true if you have just one motor that's getting super hot. Maybe your screws were slightly too long and touched the winding. The way to check that is that you do a continuity test with your multimeter, test the screw, and then over to the ESC, test where the motor wire touches the ESC, test that solder joint, test for continuity between the screw and the motor wire. And if the continuity exists, then you have a problem. And the other thing you can do is just back all your screws out like, you know, a turn and see if the hot motor goes. You're not going to fly that way, but just spin the motors or something on the ground and then see if they stop getting hot. So the answer to that is to use shorter screws. I prefer not to see, well, this isn't a great example. See, if you look at this, you can't see this motor. This motor has a ton of space between the base and the windings, so there's just really not a lot of risk there. But on a lot of motors, the windings are relatively close to the base, and even if you're sticking out by maybe a millimeter or two, you could potentially touch the winding, especially where the motor wires exit the motor. If you look at the back side of the motor, there may be several millimeters of space, and there's no chance. But where the motor wires exit the motor, then they could touch and cut there. The other thing then, if you've eliminated those, is to check your filtering and your D gains. So in Betaflight, if you lower the cutoff frequency of your gyro and your D-term low pass, you'll filter more, and that'll cool your motors down. If you lower your D gains, you'll cool your motors down, and sometimes that can be what you need to do. So let's see. The X-Hover, Spudnik says, the X-Hover Stingy is the only 5-inch bind and fly freestyle quad I've found. Well, let's just give the X-Hover Stingy a shout out while we're here. A bind and fly? For real? Did this X-Hover build a bind and fly? Wow. I did not know that. Look at this, guys. You can fly. You can have X-Hover build you a Stingy. Oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? That's nice. That's not the props he flies. But hey, what are you going to do? I don't think that's the only one, though. Like, I would put the Holy Bro Copus 2 up. No offense, not trying to say it's the same quality as the venerable Stingy. But I'd say that's a freestyle quad. I mean, you could call it a racing quad, but it'll carry a GoPro, no problem. It is bottom mount battery. Some people would say if it's got a bottom mount battery, it's not a freestyle quad. If you feel that way, I mean, I guess you could put a top mount battery on here. Not with a GoPro, not easily. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. John Doe, is Betaflight 4.0 out? No, John. Betaflight 4.0 is scheduled for January or ish. You're hearing about it because they're doing exciting things and everybody likes to nerd out, but it's not like 3.4 and 3.5, which came within weeks of each other. No worries there. Yeah, Mach 3D in the Discord asks, what about the Hawk 5? The Hawk 5 could be a freestyle frame. It flies good freestyle. I think it's designed a little more for racing, but Hawk 5, good freestyle frame for sure. Invert FPV asks, what are your thoughts on the Fat Shark T2? The Fat Shark T2 is a remake of the Fat Shark HD2. Yeah, Dominator HD2. When the HDO came out, everybody said, you know, the HDO is nice, but the field of view is a little small. I wish I had the great big 50-degree field of view. Well, not everybody said that. Some people said that. And Fat Shark went, okay, put your money where your mouth is. So now for $400, you can get a Fat Shark Dominator HD2 with a 50-degree field of view and the fuzzy edges that everybody... Here's the thing. When the HD2 came out, people were like, oh, my God, fuzzy edges. Oh, Fat Shark. You're the worst. And then the HD2 came out with a, well, then the HD3 came out, and then the HDO came out with a smaller field of view and a much better image quality. And people said, wow, Fat Shark, we really like the HD2. And I can kind of understand why some of the Fat Shark guys might be like, guys, what do you freaking want? But you can get the HD2. I'm torn on it. I'm torn. You know, it's $400. It's got a great big screen. I do like my HD2s. But if someone said to me, which should I buy today, the HD2, the HD3, or the HDO? Well, the HDO is $100 more. And between the HD2 and the HD3, I think it depends a lot on your eyes and how close you are to the optimal IPD for the Fat Shark goggles. Because if your eyes are particularly wide or particularly narrow, the fuzzy edges are going to get you with the HD2s. Yeah, it's very good that Fat Shark has decided to offer them to people who want to buy them, so that's nice. Ian Paluska says, should I get a Luminaire Alpha all-in-one? I installed a Luminaire Alpha all-in-one with a guy when we did quad camp at Get FPV in Sarasota. Luminaire Alpha is an okay all-in-one. I'm pretty sure it's a rebadged Racer Star Cicada. I'm pretty sure that's Luminaire just rebadges those, which, by the way, let me say I'm fine with. Some people say, oh, well, all they do is stick their sticker on it. No, they stick the sticker on it, and they have an 800 support line, and they have a great return policy. So they're providing value. They're not just sticking their name on it and selling it for a markup. It's okay. Like if you want to do additional stuff, like it doesn't break out all the UARTs. Some of the UARTs are little tiny pads that you have to solder to. So for a simple build, for a straightforward build, it's okay. It'll get you done. And, you know, you'll have your ESCs and your flight controller in one. So that's nice. IB Fisher asks, is it okay to have the VTX antenna touch the frame as most SMA mounts do? Will the frame act as an RF shield? The answer to your question is no. The frame will not act as any... So what you're asking about is the SMA connector is touching the frame. And that can create issues by creating a ground loop. But in terms of making the signal be more absorbed, no. It's the outside is grounded as well, so it's not an issue. But if you're concerned about that, just take a piece of electrical tape and wrap it around the SMA connector before you, well, if you're using a bulkhead mount, you're kind of out of luck. If you're passing the SMA through a hole in the frame and screwing down a nut, there's really no way to isolate that. You can try with tape and washers, but it's real hassle. What I do is I would just tape with electrical tape and then just zip tie it to something convenient and be good to go. FPV Escape asks, why aren't more batteries coming out with removable balance leads? I'll tell you the answer. Hang on. Okay. Oh, great. I got the perfect sample right here. So, this is a Newbie drone. Thank you, Newbie Drone, for sending me this battery. Newbie Drone Nitro Nectar 1300 This is a pretty cool battery. Decent performance. I haven't had it on the test stand. It's got aluminum plates, just little thin aluminum plates to give it more durability. A little more weight, but hey. And it's got removable balance lead. That's cool because it means when you go fly, your balance lead isn't getting all chopped up. But here's the problem. You go to fly. You put this down on the table. You come back. I have 8 of these batteries, and I have 4 of the balance leads. I've lost the others. Where are they? I have no idea. So you kind of got to get into a habit with removable balance leads of take it off before you fly, put it in your pocket, and then as soon as you get back, put it right back on the battery. Mr. Beto Tube, yes, it's really live. You guys don't trust. What do you think? It's recorded? Give me a break. So, yeah, leave them in the balance board. Janowski, you say leave them in the balance board. Then how do I check the battery when I'm in the field to see if it's charged? Yeah. So I really like what ACE, I don't know how to say this word. I don't know how to say this company's name. ACE, I really like what they do. Their batteries have an ultra short balance lead, and they come with a little extension. Now, you still lose the extension, okay? But, you know, if I were, like Janowski said, if I was to leave the balance lead in the balance board, at least I could still use this to check my battery in the field. And if I lose it, a balance extension is easier to, you know, find than this proprietary thing. Well, it's not proprietary, but so I thought that removable balance plugs were the best thing ever when I first saw them. And since I've been using them, I've become a little bit less enamored with them. So, alrighty. Let's see. Christina Moore, where's a good place to get 6S batteries? Well, I haven't tested the Race Day Quad's 6-cell packs, but I gotta say, the best batteries. Where's the best? This is my, hey, it's my website again, isn't that? So that's the reason, the real reason I made this website was just to be able to find these links. I tested the Race Day Quad Series 1300 and 1500, and they were really good. They were better than average performance. Not the best, but better than average performance at a really good price. And if they're using the same cells for their 6S as for their 4S, which presumably they are, then I got to think their 6S is a pretty good deal. The other 6S you can look at is, I haven't tested these either, but Catalyst Machine Works. Now, the only reason I point this out is I think I know who OEMs these. I mean, because Catalyst doesn't make batteries; they just slap a label on them. I think I know who they come from. Where are their batteries? Now, they are just big on the 6-cell bandwagon. They believe heartily in 6S, and here's their 6S 1150. For $30, which is an okay price for a 6S 1150, and their logo is a unicorn peeing a rainbow. So for that price, what more do you want? So Enzo, if your flight controller does not have a current sensor, but the sensor is enabled in Betaflight, what number will be displayed as a current reading? That depends. Sometimes it'll just be a fixed number, like 27 amps, and it'll just stay there. It just depends on what pin the flight controller thinks the current sensor should be on and what voltage is on that pin. But the key thing is that the number won't change as you throttle up and throttle down. It'll just stay the same, and then you'll know something isn't right. Let's see. Thoughts on the Beta FPV whoops. Cameron Chavot, thoughts on the Beta FPV whoops. I don't know a lot about those. They actually reached out to me and asked me to try some of their whoops. They're a 2S brushless tiny whoop sized quad. I'm interested, but I have so much other stuff to test that I just don't know if I'll ever get to it. And I hate to accept product and then not get to it, although I kind of do that all the time. because I'm so slow at making stuff. So, did I soft mount my motors on my TI build? I did not. I do not soft mount my motors generally. I usually, if I have to soft mount the motors, something else is really fundamentally wrong. So, Cariz, how can I see battery voltage if my flight controller doesn't have OSD? The answer to that question is to get a camera with a built-in OSD, and the camera, you'll just power the camera from VBAT, and the camera will put your battery voltage in the OSD. So many cameras nowadays come with a built-in OSD. If you have Betaflight OSD, you can just turn it off, but if you don't have Betaflight OSD, the camera OSD is the next best thing, and it'll show you voltage. Quads of the Stone Age asks, can we take a toilet break? It's been 2 hours. I mean, I'm not stopping you from watching the stream on the toilet. I mean, if I were to stream from the bathroom, it'd be a little awkward, but you guys can just take your phone to do what you got to do. Kevin Schindler, should you buy the rapid fire module? Wow. I really can't win here, can I? I'll tell you, I'm looking forward. I have the second hardware revision of Rapid Fire. So they made some changes to the hardware to try to fix some of the problems they were having with cameras. And I have one, and I'm looking forward to testing it. I spoke earlier about I think I'm going to do it as a live stream, and I'm going to have in goggle view, no DVR, in goggle view, live while I fly and see about the improvements and so forth. I think that whether you buy the Rapid Fire depends a lot. Well, first of all, at a price of $140-something, it's fairly expensive. When you can get something like not as good performance, but for $40, you got to ask whether that $100 is worth it to you. And to a lot of people, it is. Rapid Fire is. I've heard people going to races and saying, "I just saw so many Rapid Fires there. Everyone had it." So clearly a lot of people think it's worth it and are getting great performance from it. I think it really does come in at an interesting price point. I think that LaForge, I said this when Rapid Fire first came out, was first announced that the price was going to be $140. I said, Rapid Fire, if they live up to their promise, they're going to put a serious dent in Clearview, because Clearview is twice as expensive. It's like $300-something. And they're going to put a serious dent in LaForge, because LaForge comes in around $100, $120. And like a lot of people who are going to look at that and go, wow, I could buy a Rapid Fire for not much more if the performance is better. And a lot of people feel it is. Whereas down at the $80 price range, you've got something like the TrueD, and you've got the soon-to-be-released Owl RC module, which I've done some testing on, and the results from it actually look really promising. But when you're in the $80 price range, going up to $140-ish for a Rapid Fire is a pretty big step. I think the one who's getting hurt the most has to be LaForge, because a lot of people I look at LaForge and go, I could just buy a Rapid Fire. Is it better? It's a good question. I'm looking forward to doing some more testing of it. Giunte says, when the quad is on the bench, how much CPU utilization is too much to fly? I say about 50%. Giuliano Jungle asks, hey, Bardwell, why is the Maytech F722 not on your ultimate FPV shopping list? It has that flat cable to connect to the PDB VTX that's already on your list. I will tell you the answer to that. And I got it. This is not fair, but it's my shopping list, and I am the final arbiter. I love the Maytech F405, and I love how it connects to the VTX PDB with the ribbon cable. Great. I flew the F722 on one quad. I had terrible noise issues with it. I could not solve them. Capacitors, soft mounting, everything, filters. I could not get it to fly right, and I ended up taking the FC out. And it's only one FC, but there are other FCs that I have had good experiences with, and that's enough for me to kind of knock it off the list, because the goal of the FPV shopping list is not to catalog all the good products. I think Maytech makes a great flight controller, and I think the F722 probably is a good one, but the goal of the shopping list is to try and sort of curate and pick just a couple of each product to help keep people from being too overwhelmed with selection. And So that was enough to maybe kind of just knock it just down to position number 3. But when there's only 2 slots, being in position number 3 means you don't get on the list. So that's why. Slick Rick FPV says my rapid fire randomly drops video, which pisses me off. Yeah, Rick, this was the biggest thing for me about rapid fire. And bear in mind, I have not tested the current batch of shipping rapid fires, which have some improvements. So take this with a grain of salt. But what the thing about rapid fire was the unpredictability. It would be great, and then suddenly it would just go to hell for nothing, for no reason. At least with the other ones, I could predict when it was going to get bad and turn around. But if the video just goes from good to nothing, that's unacceptable to me. I would rather have something like a LaForge, which maybe doesn't get the same range but degrades in a predictable way, than the Gen 1 Rapid Fire, which had the issues under some circumstances. Pascal Geiser asks, what is the name of the LED lights under my bench? I'll show you. Hang on 1 second. It is this. Here it is. This is the exact one that I use. I will put a link in the chat. There you go. There's a link. That is an affiliate link. I will get a small commission if you choose to use that link. Or if you don't like it, just look up Neewer dimmable bicolor LED. Those are the ones that I use. They're really, really good price for what you get. And I have a couple of them hanging over the bench. With one of them, the light's a little uneven. But with 2 of them, it evens out pretty nicely. You can get some. You can get it with a, well, anyway, there's all kinds of options. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Maybe that's a better one. I don't know. Yeah, I like them. I think they're pretty good price and pretty good value. License to Drive asks, with the ever-growing list of tuning features being added to Betaflight, should there be a simple mode, or are the stock settings adequate enough? Yeah, so this is what I like to say about Betaflight. It has all these things that you can tune, but you don't have to. It's like, what I like, people install Betaflight and they hear about all the new features and they go, Betaflight's too complicated. And I like to say, look, you get a new car, and if the first thing you did was open up the hood and look at the engine, you go, oh my gosh, this is so complicated. Don't do that. Just close the hood, get in the car, turn the key, drive the car. It's not a problem. If you want to be a nerd and tune your quad to the nth degree, Betaflight lets you do it, but you don't have to. You can just fly the defaults and be fine. So, no, I don't think it needs a beginner mode. Just install. The problem is this. People don't know what they can safely ignore and what they need to pay attention to. So like, you're always going to set your rates. And I would suggest always setting the feed forward value or the set point weight. But people don't know that. I actually have a video I'm working on right now. It's edited. I just need to do the final edit and post it, which is like there's the baseline stuff I do with a setup just to get the rough tune in. Not even a tune really, just to get the flight feel right. So yeah, that's where people find it a little overwhelming. But the flip side is that you have something like KISS or Flight 1 where you simply don't have the option. So like take Butterflight. Before Butterflight 3.6, which just released, there was no set point weight. If you're using the buttered PIDs, there was no set point weight. And I flew the buttered PIDs and I liked them, but I thought it felt a little bit soft. And I said, I wish I could raise the set point weight. This would be perfect. Well, it didn't have the option. So now maybe you can now that 3.6 is out, but Albert Kim is in the chat. Hi, Albert. Thank you for showing up. Nice to have you here. Have I tried Betaflight 4.0? Asks Shlumi. No, not yet. Really better. The dynamic filter has really improved in 4.0. Mark Spatz, UAV Tech. I did a video about it. I posted it to my Facebook page. Yep, very nice. In the Discord. Hi, Discord. I've overlooked you for a little bit. In the Discord, Unmanned Cam asks, Mach 3D asks, when is your house map in Liftoff going to be released? September 13th. They announced the date. I thought the release date for my house in so my house has been modeled in the Liftoff simulator. You can fly at my house in the Liftoff simulator. And I thought they told me that they were going to make an announcement at Gamescom on August 21st, I think it was. And I thought that meant they were going to release it on August 21st. But actually what that meant was they were going to announce the release on August 21st. The actual release is September 13th. So I made a big deal out of it around the beginning of August, thinking it was going to come out in 3 weeks. And actually, it was more like 6 weeks. So, oops, I apologize for that. But September 13th is the date. You, if you have a liftoff, will be able to fly around my house. I posted a video of it on my channel. You can take a look at it. It's pretty cool. Please don't come to my house and try and fly around my... No offense. You can just fly in the simulator now. Wild Dingo says, GoPro Jello. GoPro Jello, even with neutral density, most likely ESC noise or just bad PIDs. That's tough. Wild Dingo, the first thing I would ask if you have unsolvable Jello is what you're having really Jello? Because, pardon me, I've had some people ask me about Jello, and when I look at their footage, it looks like what they're actually having is like vibration or P-term oscillation. So let's define Jello. Jello is a very high frequency vibration that manifests as a kind of a waviness in the video itself, but it's not an oscillation like P-term, right? So that's the first thing. And I think with Jello, you're never going to tune it out with PIDs. It's always such a high frequency thing that you need to get it with filters, or, well, so the number one way to fix Jello is to use a neutral density filter, or if you have a GoPro, you can use the ISO limit feature, ISO max. ISO max kind of acts like a neutral density filter in software. It slows down your shutter speed so that you get more motion blur, and motion blur helps hide the Jello. A neutral density filter does the same thing. But if you still have Jello even then, that's pretty bad. Here are some other things you can try. One thing you can try is if you're using BLHeli32, change the PWM frequency in BLHeli32. And there's no single right answer. Moving the PWM frequency moves where the resonance, harmonic, whatever is going to be. And so sometimes if you're at 48K, you'll have Jello, but if you go down to 32K, you won't have Jello. Just move it around and see if that fixes it. You can use auto timing. That's another good thing to try. And you can try playing with the filters. So you can look at your motor noise in Blackbox and try and tune a static notch filter to cut that out. So those are some things to try, but it's really a crapshoot of what's going to get rid of the Jello. You could throw the whole quadcopter in a fire and build a totally new one. That's also an option. Infinite Altitude in the Discord asks, thoughts on the DYS Samgook motors for $8? Actually, funny you asked that. In this budget build that I'm working on for my channel, which is going to have full instructions, start to finish, for building this quadcopter, it's going to be released very, very soon. And you'll be able to buy all of these parts in one kit from the Rotor Riot store. So this is a little project I did with the Rotor Riot guys. You can buy the parts separately if you want to, except for the CL1 frame. Of course, you got to buy that from them. But all the other parts are just standard parts, including the DYS Samgook motors, Holy Bro stack, Foxeer camera, just standard parts you can buy from anywhere. You can also buy them just, one shipping fee from the Rotor Riot store. And I use the Samgook motors on here. And here's what I think about Samgook motors. They're really hit or miss. If you buy 6 motors, you might get 5 good ones and 1 with a bad bearing. But so many people have told me that they love them and they had good experiences with them, and they feel like for $9 they're well worth it, that I just got to go with it. And in fact, I added them recently to my Ultimate FPV shopping list. And this is a case where it's always a struggle for me, because like it's easy for me to just try to kind of be an elitist and go, I don't like those motors. They're not the greatest. And, if a bunch of people out there are flying them and saying they're good for the price, then I kind of got to go, okay, I'm going to just go with it here. However, people said that about the Racer Star motors, which are like $6 a piece, 4 for $24. And I was just like, no, I'm sorry. That's just too far. Those ones, I just can't. They just did not just no. But the Samguk are okay. They're decent. I've flown them. I got okay results. I still think they're a little rougher, and I think the variability in the quality is not quite there. You know, you buy an expensive motor, right out of the box, it may be as good as a cheaper motor, but then the more expensive motor will be more durable or less likely to get a dud. But at $9 a pop for Samguk, it's not, you know, you could just buy a bunch of spares. How do you pick a size and KV for the motors? What I would suggest you do is just emulate something somebody else is doing. The good news is that for 5-inch props, 2306 is a great all-around size. Somewhere around 24 to 2600 kV, you can't go wrong. Or 2207 is what I've got on this guy. Now these are 2207 at 2600 kV. They're a little higher kV, which means you're going to draw a little more amps and maybe want to use a little bit lower pitch prop. Any of those, 2306, 2400 to 2600 kV, 2207, 24 to 27 to 2600 kV, you can't go wrong. And then I would say if you're doing freestyle, lean towards a lighter prop like a 5x4.3 or maybe a 5x4.5 at most. If you're thinking about racing, you're going to want a heavier prop like a 50-50 because it'll give you better cornering and better speed, but it's also going to just kill the crap out of your battery. So maybe you want to lean toward a little bit lower kV if you're using a heavier prop for racing. And that's basically it. Well, there's a little more, but that's a good general guideline. Albert Kim. Oh, good question, Albert. Are you all in on 6S for freestyle? Okay, so let's talk about 6S. First of all, I built a 6. Let me show them off because I may as well. Hang on. I got to untangle myself. Let's see here. This is my 6S freestyle build. Armatan Rooster. No, it's a Rooster. Sorry. Armatan Rooster. Brother Hobby R6. 1750 kV motors. Okay. Yeah. I did a video about this. And this is, of course, the Catalyst Machine Works smooth operator with the F60 1750 kV motors. So I now have experience with 2 different 6S freestyle builds, one of which is the Rooster, which I fly all the time. I know how that quad flies. And I would not say I'm all in on 6S. I think the biggest difference I notice is that you can fly further into the pack without getting unacceptable sag. Like, because I don't fly 6S all the time, I actually don't have the battery voltages drilled into my brain. Like, I know on a 4S pack when I start seeing 14.5, that's when I need to start thinking about ending the flight. And if I'm down below 14, I'm definitely ready to come in. But on 6S, I just haven't memorized the numbers yet. So if I just fly till Betaflight starts flashing, which is at 3.5 volts per cell, I hardly notice any sag on 6S. But if I fly to the same voltage, like the same volts per cell, there's a little bit of difference. Again, toward the end of the pack, I don't get as much sag, and I can push the battery harder. But it's like people say, oh, Mr. Steele flew 6S, and he got twice as long. His flights were twice as long. And actually, that annoys me so much because I did the math, and it's not twice as long. He flew like 55% longer. It was like 2 minutes and 17 versus 4 minutes and something. It wasn't twice as long. It just saw a 2 and a 4, and he said, oh, well, it must have been twice as long. It was like 50% longer. But even then, it's still, he flew 2 packs, and he put them side by side. I mean, I'm not getting numbers like that. I'm getting maybe an additional, if I run the battery to the same voltage, maybe an additional 30 seconds or so. And it's nice to fly it, but I don't feel like it's the same, like a night and day difference. Now, I think you see racers being big fans of 6S because they are willing to destroy their batteries to get that extra. I mean, if you're willing to if you run a 4S down to 3.5 volts per cell, you're going to be sagging out. And you run the 6S down to that same voltage, and you can barely feel a difference. And I don't know why that is, but I feel strongly that's true. I've observed that many times. I feel that's how it is. But for a freestyle pilot, I feel like you have to be damaging the batteries to be running them down to 3.5 per cell or lower. You have to be damaging them. And I would rather just end my flight 30 or 40 seconds earlier and save my batteries. At which point, I just don't know if 6S has that compelling of an advantage. So no, I'm not all in on 6S. And why did Mr. Steele get a radically longer flight time? Well, his battery was a little different. His motors were a little different. There were a lot of uncontrolled variables there. I wouldn't assume that if you go to a 6S low KV setup, you'll double your flight time. That's what I would say. Let's see here. Do you balance your props? No, Mr. Bigglesworth. I will never balance a 5-inch prop or a 6-inch, but definitely not a 5-inch or smaller. Never. If they're not balanced out of the bag enough to fly them, I don't want them. The problem is that mini quads break props so freaking often. If I had to balance them, I would do nothing but balance them all day long. I just need to be able to swap my props. If you have a 9-inch prop or 10-inch or bigger prop quad where crashing is not expected, then it makes more sense to balance the props, because then you're going to do it once and be done. But even then, the other thing is that the bigger props, it's more important that they be precisely balanced. So no, I don't, and I will never balance a freestyle prop. You just break them too often. The manufacturers just have to make them balanced. And if they don't, I'm going to just use a different prop. Let's see. Paul Hughes asks, at what point do you call a voltage under steady level flight or when it starts to dip down under higher throttle? I struggle with the voltage and use milliamp hours as a guide. Paul, I also look at milliamp hours, but I use voltage as the primary because at the end of the day, voltage is what tells you when the battery's discharged. I cross-check voltage against milliamp hours. So the question you asked is, when are you checking the voltage? And the answer is, I know the voltage is going to sag under load. So if I'm just cruising, right, at mid-throttle, and I see that the pack is at 14.8 or 14.7, I go, okay, I'm pretty much done. If I punch hard, like I might be only 30 seconds into a flight and do a full throttle long punch out and drop down to 13.9. But then as soon as I lower the throttle, boop, it comes back up to 15.3 or something. Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. I just, in general, if I'm punching the throttle and I'm going below, let's say 14 very much, or if I'm cruising and I'm close to 14.8 or, then I start. But basically what I want to be at is when I'm done flying and I take the back off the quad, give it a minute or two to recover. I want to see the pack be around 15.0 to 14.8. That's my goal. And at that point, I feel like that's a safe, healthy discharge, but also getting a good flight time out of it. And you just kind of calibrate yourself for how you fly. So you're looking at the voltage while you're flying and you go, oh, it's sagging. And then you stop flying and you look at the battery and it's at 15.2 and you go, okay, I could have pushed it a little further, and you just dial it in. In the Discord, Mark Spatz, UAV Tech, asks, what is your favorite prop? I see so much difference in noise in the gyro based on the prop. Makes prop choice the first major part of filter tuning. Well, Mark, that's interesting. I tend to choose props based on, obviously thrust and amps, and also smoothness in terms of how the flight footage looks, and also durability, the ability to keep flying the prop after it's taken a couple hits, because I would rather be flying than changing props. I try to tune my quads more for robustness in the face of bad things. So I'd rather have a quad that if I've got a slightly bent prop, I can keep flying and get good video out of it, rather than a quad where the minute I bend a prop, I have to change things around to avoid smoking a motor. It's interesting that you say you've seen big difference in noise in the gyro based on the props. I'd be curious to hear, and I'm sure you'll share this in the Discord chat. I'd be curious to hear what props you found are good and bad. In fact, Mark, if you want to jump over, tell me in the Discord chat. Oh, I can jump into the live stream on-air room, Mark. I'll have to pull you in there. But if you want to go and talk about this on-air with voice, we can do that. Just let me know in the chat. But my favorite props right now are the HQ V1S series. I still fly the Cyclones because the Cyclone is a really good budget build. And this is the GemFan Flash. GemFan Flash 5142s are actually pretty good. But my favorite overall is the HQV1S. And I like the HQV1S in large part because they have a really good gradation in their line. So there's the 50-40, 5x4.3, 5x4.5, 5x4.8, 50-50. And it means if I'm flying a quad with 5x4.5s, but I'm getting a little too much prop wash oscillation, I can just drop down to the 5x4.3. So it almost brings in a part of tuning. Whereas with other lines like the Dow Cyclones, if you don't like the 5x4.5s, you can go to 50-40. Yeah. I'm going to pull Mark in to voice chat in a second, and we're going to see if we can get him on the air, and we can talk about props. We'll wait till he says he's ready. Yeah, Quad Thrash, the GemFan Wind Dancers are decent. I like the GemFan Flash 5142. I think that's a pretty good prop. GemFan is actually seems to be making a real effort to come up with some good props. Let's see here. Live stream. I am now in live stream on air. When Mark tells me he's ready, I'm going to pull him into that room. This will be the first time I've tried to do this live on air. So I'm sure it'll go great. UAV Tech. Where is Mark? There he is. Anyway. Is the HDO worth the extra $200 over the Eachine EV200D? Yes. Wildly Coyote. I can unhesitatingly say yes, that I would take an HDO over the EV200 all day. The EV200 is a fine goggle at a price of $300, but the HD3 is a better goggle at a price of $400, and the HDO is a better goggle at a price of $500. The real question, I think, is whether you'd rather have the HD3 or the HDO. Yeah, Mark, you can't click in. If you're ready to go, I'm going to pull you in. Move to live stream on air. Mark, you are on the air. Let's see if we can hear you. Let's see if we can hear Mark. I got him. He's in there. I don't hear him, though. Okay, we'll give him a second. Mark, you're in the room. Get your mic working or chat to me if you need to. Yeah. So that's what I say about that. If the EV200 were $350, I would be even $50 more. I'd be kind of squinting at it. I think at a price of $300, it found a great slot in the market. But the Fat Sharks are better goggles. They have a better looking image and better build quality and better. Do I have myself muted or does he have himself muted? Server mute. Is he unmuted now? I've unmuted him. Let's see if I can hear him now. Hey, Mark, you there? I've unmuted you. Well, anyway, he's still working on it. I'll just keep chatting to you guys until he comes in. We may need, he'll chat to me, but Mark, if you're having trouble, it may be that I have permissions set wrong. We may need to go to the green room. So, Mark, if you want to just jump in.
Wait, I got it.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Yeah, push to talk.
Okay, you got. Yeah, Mark, can you put headphones on or I don't know, so I can hear myself in the background.
Yeah, hold on, just give me a second. I'll come back.
Sure thing. Oh, we're gonna get there. Yeah, I think I have push to talk enabled for the live stream on air, so that when people go on the air, they can't just have an open mic. But maybe we should fix that. Hang on, how do I fix that? Edit channel permissions. Let's see. Live stream participant. Connect, speak. Oh, I need to tag him as a live stream participant, don't I? There we go. Hey, Mark, you should. I just gave you a permission that you didn't have, so that may have helped fix it as well.
Right, you should. That should
there
be
you
good
go.
now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let's see if the stream can hear you. Go ahead and talk, Mark.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. I can hear you. The stream can hear you. Everything is going great. So, Mark, tell me more about what you think about for prop selection in terms of noise and the gyro.
Well, this was during some of the testing, so I didn't mess with this. So my answer was an honest, or my question was an honest question. I'm not an expert on this right now or anything, but we were doing testing of the dynamic filter, and there was also then subsequently a post by somebody in the Facebook group about, I guess he got some bad HQ props or something. But prior to
Wow.
that, there was one of the testers on a micro, and I don't know what drove him to change his props. It was George, for the people that were involved in testing, and it made a dramatic difference on the noise going to his gyro just based on the prop selection. So it really, I don't know. It's just something I haven't been thinking about a ton. You say, oh, he got a noisy quad. Okay, well, first soft
Yeah.
mount, so on and so forth. And when I see soft mounting, my own soft mounting or other people, it makes a difference. It makes a difference on yaw access when you're soft mount your flight control board. But the prop thing really made a big difference. And so, is it just one set of props, or is it's probably, knowing this hobby, it's probably more complicated than that. It depends
Yeah.
on, what size, like 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, that it's not one brand or anything. So it really started making me think like, wow, so now if you really want to optimize noise and vibration, you almost have to start collecting some information on, okay, what's a good
Yeah.
prop for a certain size and things of that nature.
And I think this goes back to the Jello question as well, because one of the things I forgot to mention this, but one of the things you can do if you're having Jello is switch props. And I don't just mean switch to certainly try just new props. But if you're using HQ 5x4.3s, try GemFan 5142s. Just try a completely different prop. And sometimes you'll find that your Jello is being caused by your props. And it doesn't even have to mean that the props are bad. Sometimes just a given setup is noisy. A certain motor won't like a certain prop. So especially with micros, I've heard of having big differences in flight performance and smoothness by switching props, but it's also true on 5 inches.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't know if you went through trials. Do you see the industry centering around a certain prop? I hear, HQs and cyclones and so on and so forth, but is that durability or is that a noise? You get any feedback from anybody from that level?
Yeah, I don't. That's a tougher one. I mean, price is always a big factor, and that's where the Dallas Cyclones come in. They're a really good price. HQ used to be a lot more expensive than they are now. Their prices come down a little bit. They're still more expensive. Durability matters because it just depends on who you're talking about. For a beginner, I think durability and price are the biggest considerations. I remember when I first started flying, I was flying 6-inch props, and we have so many great props to choose from now. But back then, pretty much the only really good 6-inch prop was like the HQ 6040. But they were so fragile, they broke so easily, and I would go fly one day and break $25 in props and think to myself, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to spend $100 a month in props alone. And that sounds a little silly now, but that's a lot of money to spend on just props. And then the King Kong 6040s came out, and they were like so much cheaper. They were like $1 a set instead of $2.50 or $3 a set, and that was such a big deal for me. So durability to save money and price. But then as you get up to the pros they don't really care about price. And in some cases, the pros are just getting props for free from the manufacturer, so they really don't care about price. And they care more about performance and durability as well, especially. One of the things I like most about the V1S, especially the 5050 and the 5048 V1S, which I don't run on a lot of my quads because I think they're a little heavy for freestyle, but they're so durable that you can almost always turtle mode out of a situation. Whereas with the 5043s, that you're a little more likely to bend a prop and not be able to turtle mode out. So what about you? Which props did you find to do a really, really good job?
Me personally, I haven't gone through a volley of props. I mean, I've been flying the King Kongs a lot, honestly, for the reasons you're talking about. Just price, and you don't have to. They're fairly durable, but this is what got me kind of thinking of that topic.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, it would take a lot of work because you're going to find a lot of variation within a batch. And I'll bet that you get more consistency with the more expensive props because the companies like HQ have a little more motivation to invest in tooling and stuff, molds. But also between batches, sometimes you'll get a batch that it's a little bit noisier. So you can't just say HQ 5x4.8 is a great prop, period. Because every time they run a new batch, there's a chance of something being different. And as somebody else pointed in the Discord, there's also, like colored props versus clear props that changes the characteristics of the plastic. You'll see guys and they'll buy a box of, 200 props and then they'll just these are my props, so.
Yeah, agreed. And that's what happened in the, sorry, kids.
No problem. Yeah. Who's dying in the background? It's okay. We're not on live television. Let's see. Jumper T12 Open TX remote. Your thoughts? Will you get one? Mark's away dealing with his kids. So Jumper T12. I actually have one of these. Let's go look at it over on the bench. Actually, you know what, guys? I actually need to take a bathroom break. So I am going to take a 5-minute break. And I'll come back and we'll stream some more. But when we come back, we'll take a look at the Jumper T12, which Open TX radio, runs Crossfire. Here we go.
And the reason, one word is all it takes, babe. Bursting out in cold flames, breathing, we are catching fire. Thought that we were wiser, go and light the match, babe. Miss out on the good days, breathing, we are catching fire. Circles, we're fighting for days, stuck in a phase. I think we're losing the reason. One word is all it takes, babe. Bursting out in cold flames, breathing, we are catching fire. Thought that we were wiser, go and light the match, babe. Miss out on the good days, breathing, we are catching fire. Miss and I, we're always on the edge. We fight and make love at the same time. Would you break up just because I told you what I did last night? I recall the times you said you're sorry. I'm still not sure if you told lies, but I don't care, it's all forgotten now. We're holy when we touch anyhow. Holy when we touch anyhow. Give me a chance to make it right. Just let me touch you like the first time. We don't need answers to survive. Just let us keep on with the black guys. With the black guys. Hanging up to see if you would call me. I miss you more when you seem too far away. And you can blame it all on me as long as we can find our way. Do you remember all the times we tried to stop this? Yeah, we end up the same every time. Cause when our bodies meet, there's nothing left to fight about. We're holy when we touch anyhow. Give me a chance to make it right. Just let me touch you like the first time. We don't need answers to survive. Just let us keep on with the black guys. Give me a chance to make it right. Just let me touch you like the first time. We don't need answers to survive. Just let us keep on with the black guys. Somewhere in between our secrets, there's an imminent storm. It's unavoidable, yeah. But as long as I feel that you see me, I will pay no mind at all. So give me a chance to make it right. Just let me touch you like the first time. We don't need answers to survive. Just let us keep on with the black guys. Give me a chance to make it right. Just let me touch you like the first time. We don't need answers to survive. Just let us keep on with the black guys.
And we're back. We're back. And I'm eating peanuts. It's always good when people eat on stream, isn't it? But when you stream for hours and hours at a time, you're going to end up eating. Right? We got to snack a little bit. Okay. Stuttgart. Stuttgart represent. I used to do a convention. I used to work at a convention that was in Stuttgart every year outside the Stuttgart airport. And there was this, we stayed at the Wyndham outside the Stuttgart airport. And it was my favorite show of the year because the buffet, the breakfast buffet at the Wyndham Stuttgart was so good. So good. I was so happy to do that show every year. That's my happy memory of Germany. Sorry, I'm sure there are better. Okay. Okay. Well, welcome back to the stream. We've been going for 2.5 hours, and now I've had a bathroom break, and who knows how much longer we'll go? Well, I don't know. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Jumper T12, super professional eating peanuts on stream. We'll cut this out of the DVR. We won't show any of this. We're going to talk about the Jumper T12, and in order to do that, I'm going to go over to the bench, and that again will mean I can't see your... How can I see your chats over on the bench? Hang on. I didn't quite... I have a tablet. Hang on. So it really would be better if I could see your chats. Wow, this thing is a mess. Oh, right. I let my son use this when we were on a trip, and that's why it looks like a 7-year-old has... Yeah, hold on a second. I'm going to see if I can set this up so I can see your chats when I'm over on the bench. Get out of the way, everybody. Got it. Nope, maybe. All right, well, that may or may not work, but let's go over there and we'll take a look at the Jumper T12. So this is the Jumper T12, and in case you're not familiar with the Jumper line of transmitters, the big thing about them is that they're multi-protocol. So this can do a whole bunch of different protocols, and in fact, let's just zoom in here and look at how does the menu work. Hang on. No, that's not what I want. There we go. Okay. So if we go down through the menu and pick the module. No, that's setup. Where's... Oh, that was right. Right, I heard about this. The menus are freaking ridiculous. Yeah. The menu, there we go. If we choose the, let's see, that's internal RF. Let's see what we got for internal RF. Damn. I actually haven't played with this yet. That's why I'm having trouble navigating the menu. It's kind of screwy. Is it this one? There we go. Let's see. So it looks like the internal RF is a FreeSky, the fine, and the external RF is this jumper module, which if we look at the mode, we can see, here we go. We put it in multi mode, then, oh, are you serious? Oh. If we put it in multi-mode, there we go. We can choose, oh, are you serious? Or kill me. Okay, come on. Now, these buttons don't work like you think they should. Fly Sky, Hubsan, Free Sky, High Sky, V2X2. I don't know what that is. DSM, that's Spectrum, Devo, all these other protocols. So it combined with just about every frickin' receiver that's out there, and all on one. And the cool thing about the T12 is that it uses OpenTX. The previous versions of this radio, the previous jumpers have used deviation firmware, which is a different open source firmware that's not as popular as OpenTX. It's good in its own right, just not as popular. And so the nice thing about this is that it uses OpenTX, which a lot of people are a little more familiar with. And it can even, no kidding, it can even use Crossfire. You can stick Crossfire module in here and it'll work. So that's kind of cool. I actually received the older jumper, not the T12, but the previous jumper, for review, and I gotta say, my first thought was that I just didn't feel like it was my choice for a primary radio. I'm working on getting into the chat here. I'll be able to see what you guys are saying in a minute. It just felt really small in the hands. I thought it would be great for like a kid. Sometimes people are saying, oh, I'm trying to get my 10-year-old to learn to fly, but every other radio is too big. I said, well, this would be a great choice there, but it's so small in the hands. The gimbals are not bad. They're Hall effect gimbals. They feel reasonably smooth. They don't seem to have a ton of slop. So they're not terrible. The switches are nice and clicky. It just felt a little bit like, I don't know, kind of like a toy. But the fact that this guy runs OpenTX, it's a reasonable price. And especially if you have a bunch of models, Spectrum can do tiny whoops, Free Sky, Fly Sky, you name it, it does it all. I don't know. I'm almost back in the chat, and we'll be able to ask you guys what you think of it. I'm going to go back and check the chat, and you guys are going to be saying, your audio is not working. Does it support AF HDS2A? I'm not sure which FlySky protocol it supports. I actually haven't dug into it yet. Yeah, and Julian Goes Pro says, I want it because it's tiny. So some people actually like it because it's tiny. And it confuses me, but okay. I mean, the gimbals just, you really need the gimbals to be, I guess, maybe, you know, as a pincher, maybe I'm just, it'll get the job done, though. I mean, it totally will get the job done. It totally will, if it suits your hand size. So, yeah. Anyway, that is, let me go back to the desk, and we'll see if there are any other questions or comments we can come up with. This fine radio. Hello, I'm back. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the T12? One of the things Unmanned Cam in the Discord says is that it's not using a standard build of OpenTX. So for some reason, the OpenTX project didn't accept this hardware, and they forked the project and are doing their own builds. So what it means is that you'll need to rely on Jumper to build the firmwares for you. But I don't know why did OpenTX do that? I'm not sure. I would be curious to hear if anybody knows about that. They are Hall effect gimbals. There is no internal RF. Okay, I wondered about that Unmanned Cam. I thought there wasn't an internal RF on this one. Yeah. Let's see. Have I tried the Crossfire Micro Lua? Sure, Julian. On the... That's an interesting question, Julian. Yeah, let's check that out. Crossfire, because I happen to have... Let's check that out, Julian. So... Hang on. Still working on getting the chat going over on the bench. So if we take this out, let's power it down first, shall we? Let's do that. Probably a good idea. And we'll take this module out. This feels so wrong. This feels wrong to just, I mean... What's going on here? Kind of doesn't want to go in. It's not lined up right. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, does it? What's going on here? Oh. Hang on. Where's my live stream? Okay. Well, let's take the antenna off. Try that. See if I can get it lined up. Stop. This is not the time. YouTube. This is not the time. Well, the pins don't seem to be lining up, so... Oh, there, I got it. Okay. Put the antenna on here. Oh, do you know what? I need to, I don't have an SD card in here. I'm not going to be able to test the Lua scripts because I don't have the SD card. I think I am not going to try to do that on the stream. Download the SD card contents, because there's special SD card contents for this radio. I think I'm not going to try to do that on the stream. But let's just see if we go to menu. No. What a screwy. The way the buttons work is so screwy. Let's see. Okay. External RF mode, enter. We need Crossfire, CRSF. And the internal RF needs to be off, or Crossfire will not work. So let's turn that off, and now see if we can get CRSF here. There it was, CRSF. Okay, fine. And yeah, so it is working. It's doing Crossfire. It's talking to the module. I don't know about the Lua script. I can't test that because I don't have the the SD card installed right this minute. So, all right, coming back to the chat. Hello, guys. Can you just buy the JR module for it? Sure, but I mean, it comes with a JR module that should work with everything, right? That's the kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, it has the jumper module will do FreeSky protocol, so you're fine there. I believe the T12 does have Hall effect gimbals. Let's confirm that. Let's see. No Hall gimbals. Oh, my mistake. The T8 had Hall effect gimbals. Looks like the T12 does not. That is my mistake. I apologize. Hey, the V8 freak. Good for you, man. Good for you. What do you... I can't listen when I'm over there at the bench because I can't see your chats. But go ahead. Keep insulting me on the stream. Go ahead. Let's see. The T12 V2, Albert Kim says the T12 V2 will have Hall effect gimbals. I was surprised about that because the T8 had them, and yeah. Invert FPV, can you just buy the JR module for it? I'm not sure what JR module you mean. Probably the answer is yes. If you want to join the OpenTX bandwagon, asks GNT, which radio should I buy? Well, for a budget, probably the QX7 is the best choice. It comes in around $100 and it's pretty good quality. In fact, Stingy flies the QX7 as his main radio. But if you plan to go Crossfire, you got to get the X9D because pretty much all the other Tyrannis radios require a hardware mod to do Crossfire properly. So I would go with the X9D. Or if you want to do OpenTX on Crossfire, you could also think about the Underground FPV Nirvana. Now, the software on the Nirvana is not quite finished yet, so still a little bit premature, but and it would be FlySky, not FreeSky. But since you're coming from Spectrum, you got to buy all new receivers anyway. So, yeah, you can't. Yeah, Albert, thank you, Albert, for... I'm going to make you a mod, Albert. Let's make you a mod. Let's see. Add moderator. Boom. Albert Kim is now a moderator for my channel. It doesn't mean anything, Albert, but thank you for answering questions. Yeah, the jumper multi-protocol module is sold separately. If you wanted to, you could just buy that same module and use it with your standard Tyrannis radio. The difference, I think, is that if you're not running the deviation firmware, telling the module what protocol you want it to run is a little tricky. I've read about it before, and it seems to involve a combination of dials and knobs, whereas if you have a specialized build of OpenTX or the deviation firmware, you could just tell it in software, so each model can have its own protocol. So I don't think you can do that with a standard build of OpenTX. Pablo asks, can you have poor range caused by a fault with the flight controller? Using iBus, range is about 70 meters. Unlikely. Range issues are almost always going to be caused by a problem with the receiver, a problem with the antenna, or a problem with the transmitter, not the flight controller so much. Any issue that you had with the flight controller probably would be independent of range. It would be like when you throttle up and the motors vibrate, then you get dropouts or something like that. Tony says the X9D is a relic of the past. Well, you may say that, Tony, but if you want to run Crossfire, what else are you going to go with? You could go with the Nirvana. You could go with I mean, anything else is going to require a hardware mod, and that hardware mod is non-trivial for most people. So, what are you going to do? It's a relic of the past, but, you know, it's a classic is another way to put it. Oh, interesting. Albert, thank you again. Albert tells us that if you enable the multi-protocol option in your build of OpenTX, it will work without any dials. That's interesting. I didn't realize that was a standard addition in OpenTX, so that's good to know. Can you fly 3D with 2D props? Yes, absolutely. You'll get less. I mean, put all your props on upside down. Your quad will barely hover, but it will get off the air. So, yeah, you can fly 3D with 2D props. You just won't get a lot of thrust when you're in 3D mode, but you'll get some. Let's see. Can I use turtle mode with D-Shot 300 ESCs? Asks Paul Hughes. Yeah, Paul. As long as the ESC supports D-Shot commands, it doesn't matter which D-Shot you're using. It should work the same. Prop Wash says, what's the normal range for a small park flyer like the one that comes with the Baby Hawk? I'm getting around 200 meters max. Is that about right? Yeah, that doesn't sound preposterous for the small receiver in the Baby Hawk. It might be a little short. Doesn't sound ridiculous. Fabio says, do you like La Drib? Yeah, Drib is great. We know. I give him a hard time in my vlogs because it's fun, but I think we're all having fun. He's all right. He's a good guy. He's fun to be around. We play off each other well. If you want super fast latency, says Avalate FPV. If you want super fast latency, you don't want Crossfire. Rethink your life. Really? What Crossfire? That's like the thing it's known for is super fast latency. But hey, yeah, rethink your life. Guys, we're going into now the 4th hour of the live stream in just about 5 minutes, and things are going to get a little loopier now. I haven't had anything to drink, but after 3 hours of live streaming, I think you get a little a loopy. Ooh, this is a good one. Tony Craig asks, what's the benefit of reversing motor direction? So, actually, this Catalyst Machine Works Smooth Operator, it has reversed motor direction, and if you look at my props, you'll see they're backwards from how props normally are. The front props are spinning outwards, the rear props are spinning inwards. Now, there are videos out there on the internet proclaiming certain aerodynamic advantages, and I think those advantages are largely theoretical, but I will tell you what actual advantages there are. When the props spin outwards like this, number one, when the props spin inwards, they throw grass and dirt onto the camera lens. When the props spin outwards, they throw grass and dirt into the stack, which is better because it keeps your camera lens clean. Except, as soon as you turn on turtle mode, then they throw grass and dirt into your camera lens again. So it's a little bit like when you use turtle mode on the ground, that's when you're most likely to get a bunch of grass and dirt thrown by the props. So I almost think that having props spinning the normal way, and occasionally you fly through a leaf and it throws a branch or throws some grass spatter on your lens, but at least when you run turtle mode, they spins the other way. I almost think normal direction is better now that we have turtle mode. But the other advantage is when the props are reversed and you fly into an obstacle, bonk, it pushes the quad away from the obstacle. And people say that when you fly with reversed props, the quad is much less likely to, like if you fly into an obstacle with normal props, it pulls the obstacle in and thunk, blocks the prop. When it's spinning the other way, it hits the obstacle and pushes it away, and you kind of bounce off of obstacles. Those are some of the biggest advantages. I think bouncing off obstacles is one of the biggest advantages that people say about reversed props. There's one more advantage that, again, I feel like it's largely theoretical, but I think it's pretty interesting, which is with standard prop direction, when you turn, the back rear motor is spinning up both to create yaw and to create roll. But when you run reverse props, the back rear motor creates roll and the inside rear motor creates yaw. And what that means is that you can have slightly more maximum authority in a turn because you're splitting the load between the two motors. I don't think it's likely that that ever actually makes a difference, but I do think it's pretty cool. I don't think you can compare it to swimming, Preston, because ultimately swimming has a lot to do with the physiology of the human body. You know, our muscles work to pull our arms out this way. I don't know, better than, I don't know, but I'm not sure that really holds. Maybe it does. I could be wrong. Mirik asks, one-shot 42 in theory is better than one-shot 125, but most people use one-shot 125 on older ESCs. The reason for that is that one-shot 125 was widely supported by BL-Heli S ESCs, but one-shot 42, they weren't fast enough to support it. KISS supported one-shot 42, probably still does. By the time BL-Heli ESCs got to BL-Heli 32, then everybody was using multi-shot and D-shot, and there was no point to one-shot 42 anymore, and that's why you don't see BL-Heli ESCs more widely using one-shot 42. But these days, you should kind of just use multi-shot or D-shot. I think most ESCs support them. Let's see. Jim B. FPV says, I have an SMA connector on my Tyrannis for the VAS folded dipole. If I used an adapter to hook up a 5 dB antenna, would there be any loss? There would be a small amount of loss, around maybe a half a dB or less. So, very little, but not none for those adapters. Hey everybody, a rapid question about the mounting camera control with Betaflight. So we're talking about the FPV camera control feature. And I mentioned a capacitor. What type of capacitor is it, and what rating? What type of capacitor? Well, probably ceramic is going to be the smallest. If you could get a surface mount, that's fine. But a regular through-hole ceramic capacitor would be fine. As for the voltage rating, it's a good question. I'm not sure what the signaling... I'm not sure if it's 3.3 volt or 5 volt signaling, but ceramic capacitors, I mean, just a little 15 volt, you could easily get a 15 volt one or something. They're so tiny. You're talking about something like hundreds of whatever nanofarads. It's not going to be, it doesn't matter. Just get whatever voltage you have. Chris Duden asks, should I buy the Nirvana radio from Banggood? If you buy the Nirvana radio from Banggood, you are not going to get the same firmware that's been developed by Underground FPV. I don't 100% know exactly what features you'll be missing, but I think you're going to want to buy the Nirvana radio from Underground FPV because that's going to give you the full experience. I don't know why I don't know why Underground FPV is sending Nirvana radios to Banggood to sell, but then not giving them the software to go with it. Why not just cut them off and not use them as a dealer? I don't know. Anyway. The GoPro Hero 5 Session, says Jaco Klassen. Is the GoPro Hero 5 Session still available in my country? Should I buy the Session or the Hero 6? I would just buy the Session. The disadvantage with the Session is that, well, what is the disadvantage? I mean, you could still get a warranty on it in the U.S. Just when you get your money back, you're not going to be able to buy another one potentially. If you're buying today, though, I think the Session is a great camera, and there's no reason not to buy it. I have several. FPV says, how do I keep my quad from jumping when I land in air mode? I have a video titled How to Land in Air Mode. You can go check that video out. The bottom line is that when the quad touches down, disarm. And if you bring it in hard, it's going to bounce off the ground. But just the minute you touch the ground, flip the disarm switch, and then you're done. That's the answer. It's not a helicopter. Don't land it and leave the props idling. Just land it and disarm and be done. Yeah. Let's see here. What's my opinion on toilet tank battery mounting? So in case anybody's not clear, toilet tank battery mounting refers to, normally we mount the batteries like this, right? Toilet tank means mounting them like this. And I'm interested. I was thinking about this recently because when you've got a GoPro on your Rooster or your Chameleon TI, the battery actually gets pushed back fairly far. And for some batteries like the CNHL, which are longer batteries, they can hang off the back of the plate, and it's kind of annoying. And I was thinking, well, toilet tank mounting might be better. One disadvantage of toilet tank mounting is, depending on if you've got a low deck design, it can actually put the battery pretty close to the props, which you may not like. but it's also going to change the weight distribution of the quad. When the battery is in a normal orientation, most of the quad's weight is distributed along the roll axis, which means the quad is a little slower on the pitch axis, but decent on the roll axis. But toilet tank mounting, we've kind of done, it might even be more balanced in a way, because the quad's weight is distributed along the pitch axis, but the battery is distributed along the roll axis. I don't know. I have flown a couple quads that way. I'm not sure I have a firm opinion on which is better. But I think for a bottom mount battery, it makes a lot more sense. For a bottom mount battery, I wouldn't hesitate. For a top mount, it's so close to the props, I'd be a little concerned about it. And the other thing is that when the battery is mounted like this, it's going to press on the top plate more and create more leverage. When it's mounted like this, it's almost reinforcing the top plate. So I think you'd be a little more likely to break top plates with the toilet tank mounting on top. Let's see. Mr. FPV, you say I'm not answering you. A lot of questions are going by, Mr. FPV. What was your question? TBS keeps giving me telemetry lost. I have the big one. I'm going to guess, Mr. FPV, if you have telemetry lost from TBS, I'm going to guess that you have not done the Crossfire mod on your radio, and your radio is a QX7 or one of the other radios that needs the mod. The answer to that is... Hello. I'll show you the answer. Any minute now. Hang on, guys. Get rid of this. We don't need this right now. Where's my radio? Here it is. Let's see.
Whatever.
The answer to telemetry lost with TBS Crossfire is, I'm going to go, wow, where is it? Where is it? It's going to take me a minute to remember where it is. The chat will now fill up with people telling me where it is. I think it's here, and it's in the hardware. Yes. Yes, this is where it is. Hang on. It's right. Please, 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 please. No. Dang. That's not where it is. There's a place where you can change the baud rate. I really wanted to show you what it was. Is it only if you're using Crossfire? Any minute now, I'll be able to see the chat. Hang on, I'm bringing the chat up on my laptop so I can see it. Give me 1 second. And you guys can tell me where it is. I've only ever done this on an X10, because of course the X9D... Oh, maybe they don't have it on the X9D, because the X9D doesn't need it. That may be it. I've done this on the X10S. There's a place in the... I think it's in... You hold down menu, and then you go page to the hardware screen. That's where I remember it being. And there's a place you can change the baud rate, and that is where I've seen this in the past. I don't see it on this radio, and I'm going to guess that it's because on the X9D, you never need to change that. It's only on the QX7 and so forth. Maybe it would be in the jumper if I look in the jumper. You have the X9D plus... if you have the X9D, Mr. FPV, then you do not need to do the mod. So now I'm not sure why you're getting telemetry lost. Yeah, now I'm not sure. Damn, that was my guess. Well, I'm a bit lost then. Let me look on the... Where did I put the jumper? Did I move the... There's the jumper. Because the jumper is based on a QX7, so it should have the option. Let's see. Shush now. So if I do... Oh, how do you freaking do it? There we go. Menu. Page. No, I need to hold menu. And now we're in radio setup, and we go to hardware. And yeah, perfect. So this turns out not to be right because you're not using a QX7. But if you are using a QX7 with Crossfire and you're getting telemetry lost, you either need to do the inverter mod or you go to the hardware page and you change max bauds from 400,000 to 115, and that'll fix that. All right. But that is not your problem because you don't have a QX7. And I don't know why you would be having telemetry lost with Crossfire other than that. Telemetry lost. Yeah. You have the big one. You really shouldn't. Yeah. You really have an X9D? Damn. With 500 milliwatts, I don't think you should need an external battery, Mr. FPV. Barb and Ben George asks, please explain exactly what the acro trainer is. So acro trainer means that you fly the quad. You fly the quad in acro mode, but it will refuse to go past a certain angle. By default, I think it's like 20 or 30 degrees. So you can fly the quad in acro mode, but without the risk of ending up upside down. That's what acro trainer is. It means that it's kind of like flying an auto level, but you still have to level it back out again when you're done, so you don't learn any bad habits like auto level teaches you bad habits. Let's see. Yeah, no flips in acro trainer mode. That's the point. It is not the same as horizon mode. Prop wash. So in horizon mode, you are in auto level mode until you deflect the stick far enough, and then you switch to acro mode so you can do flips or rolls. You cannot do flips or rolls in acro trainer mode. Do I like acro camera level mode? Petakar, I liked Betaflight's camera compensation feature when it first came out, but I've since just learned to fly that without it. I think it gives you a better experience. I found that it had some undesirable side effects in how the quad kind of flew when I would do snap rolls with camera compensation on. Anovia has a problem with a tiny whoop, the Eachine QX65. It gets random signal input. I'm not 100% sure what you're saying when you say, what you mean when you say random signal input. Tell me more about what you mean by that. Evolate FPV Drone Mesh said Joshua has a problem with him. Let's start a beef. You know, Eminem dropped a new album. He just dissed on a whole bunch of people in the album, and it's been really good for rap because now a whole bunch of other people are dissing back. People are paying attention. People who don't even pay attention to rap are watching, you know, they're listening, and we need to do the same thing. So Drone Mesh, I think you're all right. I can't do it. I can't start beefs. No, what I said was this. Somebody said, why don't you send Drone Mesh and ESC, one of your ESCs, to test and see what the noise is like? And I said, I'm not convinced that his testing, I don't know what he's testing, but I'm not convinced in the validity of it because some of the ESCs he said are really good. Then people are using them in the field, and I'm hearing from people in the field who are having real problems with them. I've talked to other people who I will not put on the spot by naming them, other people who are experts in the field, and they say they're not 100% sure that what he's measuring with his oscilloscope is what he really thinks it is. And I don't know. I'm not, but I like, then you say, okay, we'll send him your product and see if he thinks it's good. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure that's the best way to judge it. So that's all. I think Drone Mesh is great. I think he does, you know, everybody who's doing research and publishing research, I'm a big fan of it. But, you know, there you go. Yeah, Michael Austin. Did you see Michael Austin? Did you see Z Antwert's like response to Eminem's diss? I thought it was pretty highlighted. You know, just like if you compare Antwoord's response to Eminem's diss to Machine Gun Kelly's response to Eminem's diss, it really shows what different kind of artists they are. Because Machine Gun Kelly is just like F you, and it's a great response, but it's really just punch you in the face. And Antwoord are almost like, it's just like this calm, mature, deep response. You know, neither one is better, but I really liked both of them. Yeah. Didn't think you were going to get that in this live stream, did you? Yep. The best line is they said you went away a god and came back a man, and it's like you're insulting him at the same time that you're complimenting him. It's like, you know, you were a god, you were the best. We got to acknowledge that, but now you're just you're just a guy. Deep. All right, moving away. Moving on. It really is complete. Yeah. Can you use Betaflight Lua scripts when running a Spectrum receiver like the X-Lite with a Spectrum external module? I want to run X-Lite on my quads, but I don't want to switch over all my receivers. That's a good question, K-Lols. So Betaflight Lua scripts rely on a functionality called MSP over, telemetry, I guess. What happens is that the Lua script needs a way to send data back and forth to the flight controller. And that does work. It works with FreeSky, SmartPort. It works with Fport. It works with Crossfire. Those are different radio protocols, and there are different ways of sending the data back and forth, but they all make it work. So the question is whether Spectrum has made that work, and I think the answer to that is no. And I say that because Spectrum has telemetry, obviously. When I was at Horizon Hobby a couple months ago for Quad Camp, we went to Horizon Hobby and visited their offices and talked with them. We talked about opening up their radio link to data from like the Lua script. And they're very protective of their data link. They don't want to screw up because their bread and butter is people flying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 jets. And the idea that we would just let this open source software just send data over our serial link, whoa, they didn't like it. So there have been ways in which Spectrum has emulated the same functionality as the Lua script, right? Like you can change your VTX settings using a Spectrum radio, but it's not with a Lua script. My gut feeling is that the Betaflight Lua script will not work over Spectrum, although I haven't personally tested that because Spectrum doesn't really make that open. Let's see here. What do I think of Stu and Trev Pedikar? Stu is amazing. He is one of the best ambassadors for our hobby. So many, people. Stu is a lot like the Ishin Wizard. That's a compliment. It's also a little bit of a diss. Because dissing is good for rap, right? So many people get into the hobby with the Ishin Wizard. Is the Wizard the best quadcopter? Is it the highest performance? Is it the deepest? No. But it's the single quadcopter that brings more people into this hobby than anybody else. People have fun with it. And Stu is kind of like that. Is he the most technical guy or the best pilot? No, neither. I'm not the best pilot either, but he is so enthusiastic, is so positive, and so prolific in his coverage of especially cheaper stuff that brings people into the hobby. I can't even imagine how he keeps up with all this stuff. And so many people get into the hobby from him that I'm a huge fan. It's good that he has Trev to keep him grounded. Let's see here. What do we got? Mach3D in the Discord asks, how critical is antenna orientation for Crossfire? How critical is it? And the answer is that if you are a typical freestyle pilot, it doesn't freaking matter. Because you're at, maybe if you're down at 25 milliwatts, it becomes a little more critical. But if you're even on the micro at 100 milliwatts, the range of that system, unless your antenna has just had a dog chewing on it, you're going to get so much range into the system that any losses from antenna orientation can effectively be ignored. If you're going longer range, then antenna orientation becomes really critical because you can get 15 dB of drop, when you go from the antenna like this to the antenna like this. You can get a huge amount of drop. Hold on, the radio's beeping at me behind me. Gotta turn it off. You can get a huge amount of drop. And when you're 10, 15 kilometers out and you nose over and you go into a roll, that can just break your link, at which point I sure hope you have returned to home. But for a freestyle pilot or a racing pilot, just however you can freaking stick that antenna on there, it kind of almost doesn't matter. I heard a story about somebody whose antenna popped off. They went flying with literally just the IPEX connector sitting there naked. And they were like, yeah, the range was okay. It was all right. I had to turn up to 500 milliwatts, but it was okay. So yeah, don't stress if you're a freestyle pilot. If you're a long range pilot, then antenna orientation becomes critical, and not even so much because your RSSI will be low, but because the RSSI will change rapidly as the copter or plane changes orientation. Sorry it took me so long to get to that one Mach 3D. Michael Austin, isn't mounting the whip antenna like steel at a 90-degree angle essentially the same as bending the Immortal T, since the ground plane is now at a 90-degree angle? What you're talking about doing is this. This is also how I mount my Crossfire antennas in a 90-ish degree orientation. I've actually started right how you can kind of see that I've got the two antennas around the standoff. You kind of can't see that. I've started doing it with one antenna on the standoff and the other antenna around the first zip tie, so they're at a 90-degree angle. That's how I do it as well, and that is not the best for range. But you say, isn't that the same as bending an Immortal T at 90 degrees? I'm not 100% sure. Is the Immortal T the same design as the other one? If so, then I guess, although you'll never really get an Immortal T at a 90-degree angle because of this plastic thing. You'd have to break the plastic thing off. Yeah. But again, I say for me, for freestyle, I'm never going more than, a kilometer at most. Right? How far do you need to go for freestyle? Because you're too busy going zoopy, zoopy, zoop, flippy, floppy instead of going out and back. I mean, I only have a 3-minute battery. How freaking far am I going to go? And at that point, durability and, like in this case, the ease of transporting the quad without crushing the antennas. If I put it in a backpack or something, I can just stack them on top of each other. That's actually why I mount the antenna that I do. I just don't care about range, because at 100 milliwatts or now with the new firmware 250 milliwatts, I could just fly forever at that point. Let's see here. Hatfield CW, lots of advice threads seem to degenerate into that brand is always DOA versus you wrecked it with bad soldering. Is it believable that someone got 4 faulty FCs in a row? Well, I can tell you that my flight controller, I'll pick on myself, version 1.2 of my flight controller had a defect in the 9-volt regulator, and a lot of people just got 3 or 4 in a row that smoked the minute they plugged them in, and we replaced them. We took them back and replaced them and apologized and tried to make the next version better. So if there's a defect in manufacturing, that's completely plausible. Also, you could just be bad at soldering. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I'm not going to name names, but you know how you have a bad flight controller and you contact customer support and they say, can you show us a picture of it? One of the things they're doing when they look at that picture is they're judging your soldering. And if you send them a picture of the board and all your solder joints are perfectly clean and smooth and they look at it and go, this guy knows what he's doing, you're probably going to get a replacement. And if they look at it and your solder looks terrible, and you'll probably still get a replacement, but maybe a little less likely. Yeah. Antonis, should we stack on GoPro sessions, or are we going to see something new? Antonis asks this in my Discord. By the way, it's been a few hours. Wow, it's 4:30. We've been going for 3.5 hours. Sheesh. So I'm just going to remind you guys again, hey, I have a, I haven't said this in a while. This is my full-time job. Some of you guys are coming to the live stream and are new to the channel. It's easy for me to forget that I'm getting about 2,000 to 2,500 subscribers a month. That's been pretty steady. I've been pretty lucky that that's been pretty steady for over a year now. I'm getting close to the magic 100,000 mark, which means nothing to anybody but me, but I'm looking forward to it. And if you are new here, this is my full-time job. And one of the ways that I support myself is through, wait for it, any minute now, is through my Patreon, which is a way that you can subscribe to me as a person and give me $1, $2, maybe more dollars a month. And one of the things you get as a benefit of being one of my patrons, here's the link. It's in the bottom of most of my videos, is my support me page, which is actually got links to my Patreon and other ways that you can support me. And once you become a patron, you get access to a Discord server, which is like a chat server, but there's also voice chat. Sometimes I just, in the middle of the afternoon, I'll say, hey, everybody, I'm going to be on for about 20 minutes, and I'll just hang out and talk to you. A little more informal than like a live stream. Of course, you can ask questions, and I make a priority answer. So I'm taking questions here, and Antonis asks, I haven't forgot your question, Antonis. What, is 4:22? It's been 3 minutes. Give me a break, man. It's been 3 minutes. I didn't forget your question. On the Discord server, you can get access to that by signing up as a patron. Should we stack up on GoPro sessions, or are we going to see something new? I don't know of anything new coming down the pipe. I've seen rumors of a GoPro Session 7 or a GoPro Hero 7. Somebody leaked that, I saw on the internet, but no, I think the session form factor is well and truly dead. GoPro did not make, and this is from statements by the CEO, GoPro didn't make any money on the session. And people in FPV find that preposterous because we bought the hell out of them. But we bought them and then we crashed them and returned them with the Best Buy warranty. And I'm not saying that that is the single thing that sank the session, but it sure didn't help. And nobody else was buying them because if you think about it, if you're snowboarding, the difference in weight between a Hero and a Session is nothing. And the Session doesn't have a screen. And it's, you know, so it's a little more durable. Well, I just put it in one of those plastic covers and it's fine. So it's really only FPV pilots who loved the Session. Nobody else was buying them, and GoPro was losing money hand over fist. And therefore, I just think it's dead. So if you like Sessions, buy as many as you can now. And, you know, then when they're gone, figure out something else. Yeah, figure out something else. Let's see. Nicholas78 in the Discord asks, what do you think of the Cadex camera and the HDLRC tower? So let's start with Cadex. Cadex makes some pretty good cameras. I have in one of my quads, oh, I can't see it. I think it's the Cadex SDR2. It's a pretty decent little CMOS camera. If you like a CMOS image, I think it gives the Sparrow, the Runcam Sparrow, that's the one that's in this quad, which is a CMOS image, but it has a really nice, doesn't have a lot of the things people don't like. It doesn't have great dynamic range like the Eagle does, but it doesn't have a lot. It looks a little more like a CCD camera, but it's a CMOS camera. And the SDR2 is really quite good. The Cadex Turtle is another product I'm hearing a lot about, which is a competitor to the Runcam Split, which is a HD/FPV camera, records HD on an SD card on board. Great for micro quads. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the Turtle and saying they're having some QC issues, some performance issues. The Split Mini V2, I'm actually testing that. I'm putting it in a quad, a 3-inch quad now. That is a new version of the Runcam Split. The old Split had 2 boards, so stacking it was pretty hard. The new Split Mini V2 has 1 board. And that is pretty exciting. Looking forward to that. So I'm generally positive about Cadex, although I'm not sure that the Cadex Turtle is the best, is better than the Runcam Split. HDLRC, I have mixed feelings about HDLRC because HDLRC has very innovative designs, but their manufacturing seems really spotty. There are so many quality issues where, like, you see this with the HDLRC flight controllers that have the VTX built in. They were one of the first to do that, but then the VTX always died. So HDLRC, the micro pilots seem to like them a lot. They seem to do well in the micro space. But for a 5-inch quad, I'm always a little skeptical that their stuff is going to hold up. So, Albert Kim, what do you know about the CADX Turtle 2? I want to hear about that. That should be interesting. The turtlet, yeah, yep. Albert, if you want to call in, let me know. Message me. I guess in Facebook Messenger maybe. I'll send you an invite to the Discord if you want to get on voice and talk about. You talk about whatever you want to talk about, to be honest. But if you want to message me on Facebook Messenger, I'll send you an invite and we can jump on and talk about the turtle and what else. Yeah, Albert Kim is in chat. He's another reviewer. Does really good work. Oftentimes he reviews stuff and I'm like, damn, why didn't I do that? So, yeah. Let's see. Is there a reason? Don't know the answer to that. Don't know the answer. Have I tried the Astro X Johnny FPV frame? Let's look at the Astro X Johnny FPV frame, shall we? Shall we look at that? Johnny FPV made his own frame. Of course he did. Good for him. Here's the Astro X Johnny FPV frame. What do we got here? It's sized for a micro camera. Now this is interesting. What do you guys think of this? I gotta zoom in. Why won't you zoom in, please? No? I can't have that? How about this? Pop up. Really? Alright, well screw you, get FPV. Here we go. Perfect. That's better. So it's sized for a micro camera, and I really like this. I think micro cameras have got to the point where their image quality is just as good as the bigger cameras, especially if the camera has, as you can see, it's got a full-size lens, and that is a micro, isn't it, or is that a mini? I'm not sure. It looks like, I think it's a micro. But it's got the same size lens as a bigger camera and the same image quality, the same sensor. A lot of people are actually going with 20mm stacks, even for full-size quads, although I still think you can't get, like, the biggest 20mm 4-in-1 ESC I know of is the 20 amps. So I think you still need a 36mm 4-in-1, but you can go with a 20mm flight controller. And just, you can see the frames are getting way more compact. And it's almost kind of like an Alien, but it's just been sort of compact. Although it is interesting that Johnny did not choose to go with a low deck design. And he's actually commented that he thinks that higher standoffs give better handling, which is a little counterintuitive. Most people would say that lower standoffs give more centralized weight. Beata Bortel says 40 amps. You know of a 40 amp 20mm? Which one? Which one is it? Link it. I'd love to hear about that. That's fantastic. So that's the Johnny. It's clearly made for a 4-in-1 ESC. You're not going to be putting ESCs on these arms. And that's just the way quads are going these days. 4-in-1s are definitely dominant. Very few people are using individual ESCs anymore. Lets the arms be thinner. Lets more air get through. So that's nice. And then Johnny's motors are 2207, which are just a brilliant motor size for freestyle. Before Johnny came out with his 2207, I was thinking if I ever make a motor, it'll be a 2207, because everybody was making 2306s, and I think 2207's a little better. But then 2207 became the new hype, and I was like, well, I guess I just don't even need to bother. So, yeah, that's the Johnny FPV Astro X frame. However, what a lot of people are going to not like about it is, yikes, it's $130. So it ain't cheap, guys. It ain't cheap. But $100, yeah, some people will find that worth it. It's good. It's probably good quality. Probably flies really nice. Mike, really? Is that your name, Mike? I'm not saying it out loud, Mike. But Mike asks, how to manage cables. What about cable damage and magnetic interference? Twist, braid, straight, tape. Oh, you guys would probably like to see. There we go. Twist, braid, straight. What about all that stuff? So I twist wires together just because it keeps them neat. I don't braid them because that's too much of a hassle. Does twisting wires, like twisting signal and ground, reduce interference? A little bit. But we're not using differential signaling, which is how you really, like in Ethernet, the twisted wires combined with the differential signaling means you get great noise cancellation. That's not what we're doing. So twisting has a little bit of noise resistance, but not a massive amount. I twist them because it just keeps them neater. That's about it. I don't think it does anything bad. Adam asks, am I going to make a review of the Holybro Copus 2? Yeah, so the Copus 2, I'm working on getting it tuned right, and I can't tell if the things that it's doing are Betaflight's fault or the Copus's fault. And I really feel bad about that. I did a tuning live stream where we tried to tune the Copus, and we didn't get a good tune out of it. And later, I was sure that it was going to tune great, because the Copus 1 flew amazing right out of the box. And I felt bad because, like, the Copus, if the problems it's having, I'm also seeing those same problems on some other quads, and I kind of wonder if it's a Betaflight issue, and I feel a little bit bad that it might have made the Copus look bad. The Copus 2 is an amazing quad in terms of specs. Hold on. Oh, I've run over my cable. Hang on. Ow. There we go. Where is the Copus 2? Here it is. So it's about $300, I think. I'll look that up. But it's here's the frame. It's a nice compact frame. Holybro Electronics stack with that's where one of my SD cards went. Great. Got an SD card reader. You can lose your SD cards in it. Oh yeah. Well, that's a good one too. Runcam Micro Swift camera, good quality camera. T-motor, F40 Pro, 2400 kV motors. One of the things that's a little controversial about it is that it has foam core carbon. It's lighter weight, and some say stiffer, but some also say not as durable. We'll see about that. And just overall, a really nice design. I still need to fly it a little bit more and maybe, see if I can get the kinks out of it. But I don't want to review it until I can confirm that it's flying good, and that's why you haven't seen me review it yet. So, what range can I expect? Hang on. Where did it go? I lost it. Michael Austin says you should start a mail order service where people send you their quad to tune it for like $40. Michael, I think you are severely underestimating, one, how long it takes me to tune a quad, or two, how much my time is worth. Because it would cost way more than $40. No offense. When I have tuned people's quads in the past in exchange for money, and it takes, I would say, typically maybe 3 hours minimum to get what because I'm not just going to like slap a tune and go, oh, okay, it's pretty good. I need to like really get it flying better than defaults. The defaults are so good these days, it's hard to do. So I really work to get a great tune, and it takes a lot of time. And there's often back and forth. And so I would say if I were to do a tuning service, we would be looking at, I would say, 6 hours of time to make it, like, because that's just, including like back and forth and having to screw with go to the post office and all that stuff. And so then do the math. Let's say it's a minimum of 3 or 4 hours. So $40, $10 an hour. No. It's not enough. But the bottom line is I would much rather make videos that teach you how to tune your quad than tune one guy's quad. Because when I make a video that teaches you how to tune, then 5,000 people learn how to tune. But when I tune one quad, then one person gets a good quad. And then the minute a new version of Betaflight comes out, then it's all worthless anyway. So let's see. What's the ideal weight? Damien, you've been asking this question, and I've been just not getting to it. Let me get to it right now. What's the ideal weight for a freestyle quad? I think for freestyle with a GoPro being in the range of about 570 to 620, like 575 to 625 grams is pretty good. That's way heavier. Racers right now are cringing. Racing quads want to be just about as light as they can be. But for freestyle quads, I think a little more weight helps it carry its speed for low throttle maneuvers, and not just, it helps it push through the air resistance and keep going when you fling yourself. And that's a big part of freestyle, especially because you're carrying a GoPro. You're always going to be a little bit heavier. I think a freestyle quad that's close to 500 grams is exceptionally light with a GoPro is exceptionally light. And being in the range of about 600 grams is normal. When you start getting over, let's say 650 to 700, now you're at the point where you're compromising performance in my experience. So that's what I would say. What do you think about the Acrobrat? Neil Hemmerspach asks, what do you think about the Acrobrat? Let me show you guys, in case you don't know, not Acrobat, Acrobrat. Oops, that's a... No! Adobe. What are you doing, Adobe? It says, no. Acrobrat. See? Oops. No, I want this. Oh, God. I fail. Acrobrat. There we go. What I want to show you guys is these amazing product shots that have been done for the Acrobrat. This guy, oh, crud. He goes by Scarecrow FPV, I think. I don't remember his real name. I want to show you his amazing product photography. This guy is such a good photographer. I don't know where that's going to be in this video, unfortunately. Tommy talking about it. Where are the photos? No, it's just the thumbnail. Okay, it's just the thumbnail. Really? Good live stream, Joshua. There we go. Yeah, he takes these crazy good photographs. He did these product shots. He's done some other shots for the Rotor Riot guys. He's an amazing photographer. But the frame is the Acrobrat, and the cool thing about the Acrobrat is that it's got a clean, dirty plate design. You may remember clean, dirty plates from way back in the day. The idea is that the body is isolated from the arms so that the camera can be jello-free. And this is an issue that a lot of 3-inch quads have. The Acrobrat carries a RunCam split. You can see the split tucks up underneath the camera here, so it's not, you still get a low deck design. You get top mount battery, which not many 3-inch quads have. So the idea is that you're going to get kind of a 5-inch freestyle experience out of a 3-inch. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I actually haven't got to fly one yet, so I can't comment on how it flies, but there you go. Let's see. Velocidrone is uncontrollable with my X-Lite, says Jeffrey Ruby. Can you offer any suggestions regarding setup? I would just start by making sure that the channels are moving correctly and that you don't see, like when you move the stick a tiny bit, it goes crazy. Just make sure that you've run the calibration and that the channels are set up right. That would be the first thing I would say. Let's see. Is 2205 enough for freestyle? Stefan, we flew 2205s for a long time and flew freestyle, but the standards have changed for what fast and powerful is. So you could go back and fly 2205s. You'd be running 5x4x3 props. You wouldn't have as much punch and power, and people would look at your video and go, that's not as exciting as I'm used to. When you fly bigger motors, you get more punch, more power, more speed, and you can have more dynamic movement, and it changes the way that you fly. So you can fly on 2205, but by today's standards, I feel like 2206 is probably the minimum for 5-inch. I've flown some 2206 quads that had really good performance. I was kind of impressed with the motors. But most guys nowadays are flying 2306 or 2207, which have even more torque, and that's sort of the standard right now for freestyle. Clearview, people are asking for comments on the Clearview module. I talked about that way back. It was one of the first things at the beginning of the stream that I talked about. I'm going to just let that go. You can go back and watch the DVR if you want to check that out. Is it possible, Barat FPV asks, is it possible to create a macro switch in Betaflight or OpenTX for a quick 180 turn? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. You can create scripts that make the channels do things, but the exact stick movements you need to input are so relative to your position. It's not as simple as just going boop, You just need to fly it. Let's see. First Person Q asks, I have 2 quads that are around 10 to 20% throttle, rev to full value, and won't stop until I disarm. So let's, first of all, if you're talking about with your props off, that is completely normal. When you arm with your props off, there's feedback into the PID controller, vibration, but the props, there's no props, so the PID controller can't actually do anything about it. So the PID controller tries to spin the motors differently to fix the vibration, and since it can't, the motors just slowly get faster and faster until then they get to max, and then you disarm. But there's another problem, so just don't worry about that. Put your props on, go hover, everything's fine. But there's another problem that happens where when you arm the quad and raise the throttle, it goes and tries to fly to the moon as it sort of oscillates back and forth like crazy. One of the things that can cause that is if you have all your motors running if you have your yaw direction reversed. Yeah. If all 4 motors are reversed, I'm not sure about that. But what happens is the quad tries to turn left and it's actually turning right, and then it flies to the sky. So reversing your yaw direction, you're not likely to have done that accidentally though. And the other thing that can cause that is excess vibration. So what happens is too much vibration gets into the PID controller, the D term goes crazy, and the quad basically just tries to fly to the moon. In that case, the fix is soft mount the flight controller, add a capacitor, and lower your D gain. Maybe lower the cutoff of your filters so you filter more. If that's really happening, though, yeah, I seldom see that happen. I would want to look for mechanical problems with the quad and see if there was something wrong with the flight controller, a broken standoff or something, because that shouldn't usually happen. So, let's see. Chris Sullivan, we talked, yeah, yaw reverse. Yaw reverse will definitely do it. Will prop reverse also do it, Chris Sullivan? Not sure about that. Why is KISS better than Betaflight, says Tommy Long. I'm not going to go there. Am I going to do any more videos of me playing the guitar? I haven't played the guitar in a long time. I've been so busy making quads. Is it normal? Ladragon says, is it normal for a VTX to overheat while powered on the bench while testing motors? Yes, it's totally normal. VTXs are designed to run in the airflow from the props. And the reason for that is if you design them with a bunch of heat sinks, they get heavier. And since you know that the VTX is always going to be in a 60-mile-an-hour airflow, why design it with a big heat sink? But the flip side is that if you power up the VTX on the bench without any airflow, it's going to overheat and it's going to shut down. That's normal. The answer, if you really need to do that, is to blow a fan on it. Let's see. Crazy Ant, come to Discord chat. Rapid fire versus real ACC with Achilles. Tony Long, I showed the rapid fire. Oh, hang on. Rapid fire versus real ACC with Achilles. No, I mean no contest. Real ACC with Achilles is $40, $50. Rapid fire is $150, but rapid fire obviously has better performance. Come on, give me a break. Mr. O Big says, you barely never talk about TX curves. I find deviation much more customizable than Betaflight, especially for throttle curve. Yeah, so not Betaflight, deviation. I'm a little confused there because deviation is a transmitter firmware, so it would be compared to OpenTX, but you're comparing deviation to Betaflight, which is a flight controller firmware. So I'm not 100% sure what you're going for there. OpenTX can have multi-point curves, so you could do a throttle curve. Betaflight does not have great support for throttle curves. It would be a nice thing for them to add. A throttle curve can be very helpful. I mean, I fly linear on all my quads, but a throttle curve can be very helpful, especially for micro quads that have a really high thrust to weight ratio and a low hover point. It can give a lot more control. Kevin Mattern says, My QAV 180 drifts away and isn't coming back on any stick input. In black box, I see the 3D model flip, which wasn't done in reality. The 3D model in black box that shows the quad's orientation is not always right. So if you see black box show a flip, that's just the 3D model being screwed up. It doesn't mean anything. But if your QAV 180 is drifting away and ignoring your stick inputs, that's a problem. Because if your quadcopter is ignoring your stick inputs, then it should be in failsafe. And if it's in failsafe, it shouldn't be flying anymore. So the first thing I would do is I would check that your failsafe is set to kill the quad and drop it. And then the second thing I would do, make sure that your receiver is set to no pulses. That can be a common mistake. And then after you verify that failsafe is working correctly, then figure out why you're going into failsafe. Do I think that the original FreeSky protocol will disappear? Do you think it will be necessary to upgrade to Crossfire eventually, asks Manuel Smeets. I don't know why FreeSky would disappear. I mean, FreeSky is going to keep making FreeSky protocol. I don't think that R9 is going to replace 2.4 gig anytime soon. So no, I don't see why the FreeSky protocol would go anywhere. Let's see. Am I going to make a review of the Owl RC module? Asks Adam Juzik. I took a shot there, Adam. Am I going to make a review of the Owl RC module? Yeah, absolutely. I've tested the Owl RC receiver module with pre-release firmware. The final review is going to be when there's a actual retail production piece. It's all well and good to tease you guys with pre-production stuff, but as Clearview and Rapidfire have both discovered, sometimes you have a great prototype and your production product has a problem. So I really want to test the actual final production one. The Owl RC module looks very promising. Its performance has been exciting, and it's supposed to come in at a price point of $80. If it ends up offering Clearview or Rapidfire-like performance at that price point, it's going to be a real killer. But that is a pretty big ask. Clearview and Rapidfire both had to do some pretty special things with hardware to get the performance they get. And it doesn't seem like the Owl RC module has a lot of that tech built in. Do I feel any difference between BLHeli S and BLHeli 32? DigiFPV, the biggest advantage to me of BLHeli 32 is some of the additional customization, like the ability to have custom music, video game music play when I plug my quad in. No, wait. The real advantages of BLHeli 32 are the auto timing. You know, normally you set timing low, medium, high. Auto timing automatically adjusts the timing in real time. And the adjustable motor PWM frequency, which can really help with jello and mid-throttle oscillations. So those are two big advantages of BLHeli 32. If you're running BLHeli S, a lot of times you just don't have an answer for like mid-throttle oscillations, whereas in BLHeli 32, changing the PWM frequency fixes it. Nate Clark asked, why can't we get a box goggle with a good receiver? Well, just get a box goggle and... You know, I was going to say get a box goggle and just get another ground station or something. The Viper, actually, the FXT Viper did pretty good in my range testing. Certainly comparable to something like Relay. I think it was better than the Relay CC. So have a look at the FXT Viper if you want a box goggle with a good receiver in it. Or just get a ground station or an external module and kind of stick it to the side with Velcro. That's why you got a box goggle, right? Alrighty. Do I think GPS rescue is reliable enough to use it as a failsafe mode? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point. But remember, GPS rescue doesn't actually return to home. The goal of GPS rescue is just to get you back close enough that you get your signal back or can land with line of sight. So it won't really, it's not exactly a failsafe, but it'll get you close. Will I do a comparison, asks Gremlin Nico, of Betaflight versus KISS versus Raceflight? No. Nope, I won't. That just doesn't interest me and seem like a good use of my time. Betaflight, KISS, and Raceflight, or Flight 1, all have different advantages and disadvantages in terms of ease of use. For example, KISS and Flight 1 pretty much only run on their own hardware, although it's worth pointing out. Look at this, guys. Look at this. What is this? You're not going to believe this. Oh, I see the problem. Yeah. I see. No, where's that? Sorry, guys. Look at this. There we go. Come on. Come on. What is this? This is a KISS flight controller. But it's not made by Flyduino. No, it's made by iFlight. It's licensed. It's legit. It's not a clone. Flyduino licensed this to iFlight to make this KISS flight controller. It's got an OSD built in. Do you want to run KISS and run OSD, but you don't want to run the MW OSD with all the hassle with FTDI adapters and everything? Sorry, Mr. Steele. Your PDB is amazing, but KISS really crippled you with that MW OSD thing. Why? No, Flyduino was like, we don't want to put an OSD on our flight controller. Why? Okay. But then they licensed it out, and this one has OSD. So exciting. If you want to run KISS, if you don't want to buy a actual legit Flyduino KISS flight controller, there you go. So that's interesting. So I was going to say, getting back on topic, with Flight 1, you can run the Revolt, and that's it. With KISS, you got to run the KISS flight controller, and oh, now there's two choices. Betaflight, you have a lot of choices of hardware. That's something that steers people in one direction or the other. The whole comparison, there's so many things that make that decision for you before you get to flying. So the idea that I'm going to build all three quads and fly a bunch of them, and then I'm going to say this one's the best, and then everybody's going to pile on me and say I'm wrong, and I got this. No, it's just like, there's no, I'm just going to, no, that's just, I would probably get 100,000 clicks, and I would pull all my hair out and never want to look at the internet again. So I just don't see it happening. All right, there you go. Alrighty. Well, guys, it is coming up on 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. And that means I've been going for 4 hours. And I think you guys are starting to ramp down too. Ooh, EV100. I'm trying to stop, but that was a good question. EV100, is it decent goggles? No. Not even for $100. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. For $100, you should buy. It's the resolution is so bad, and the size screen is so small. Just forget it. EV100, no. Save your $100. All right, that's going to be the last one. Thank you guys so much for coming out for the live stream. It's been a real pleasure getting to actually interact with you guys. That's going to do it. I will be doing more live streams because, as I said earlier, now that QuadCamp Online has me on a schedule, I want to make sure that my subscribers are not getting less than people on another project I'm working on. So you're going to see me live streaming more. I hope that my next live stream, if I get the equipment together, my next live stream, I want to be a live in goggle with Fat Shark HDOs and GoPros stuffed in the goggle, a live comparison of Clearview, Rapid Fire, LaForge, Owl RC. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to live. This is all. I want to make this happen. It's going to be tricky. But what I want to do is I want to show you guys the flight. Because here's the thing. I can only test 2 at a time if I'm doing the GoPro in the goggles. With the DVRs, I can do 6 at a time. But I want to do the actual in-goggle view. But since I can only test 2 at a time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you guys decide who won. I'm going to create a straw poll. And the chat will go vote on the straw poll and say Clearview won or Rapid Fire won. And then, we'll move on and we'll do different tests. Clearview versus LaForge, Rapid Fire versus LaForge, Trudy, etc. And you guys can vote on who won. And it's going to be live. We're just going to spend all afternoon flying and staring at staring at in-goggle view of Rapid Clear. And then we'll know, finally, who's the best. That's what I'm hoping to do next weekend. So look forward to that. I will see you guys next time I am out of here. Happy flying, everybody.